a young lady reaches out her hands to a little boy, and his mother at this time claims that this child was attacked by a magical beast, after which she turns to the lady saint and asks to help the boy. The young lady then uses her power and heals the guy's bruise. The boy looks at this through tears and is very surprised. And when the young lady finishes the healing, the young man looks at his hand in shock because it is as good as new, after which he admires these powers and thanks the lady saint. The boy's mother also bows and thanks the lady saint. The main character then says goodbye to them with a smile. The girl also understands that there are sick or crippled people in this temple. The holy healers and this sacred place help, and all these girls are candidates for sainthood, and their task is to heal the sick. At this time, the young lady is healing a wound on her hand and realizes that she works in this temple. Well, then the other saints begin to whisper among themselves and ask if this is really disgusting. One of the girls then claims that she cannot believe that the young lady cannot cure a person without transferring his symptoms to herself. And it's so ugly because the young lady suffers so much every day. Then the girls claim that they are not like her and that she is an imperfect saint. The main character then realizes that her abilities have one peculiarity. After all, she takes the person's injury and then is treated. And for her, this is the only way of healing. But the girl understands that this is how she repays her debt to the temple for sheltering her there when her parents fall into eternal sleep. And she realizes that this is the best thing she can do if she can heal someone. The girl thinks that no matter how much pain and suffering she has to endure, if she tries, she will get through it. And besides, she has another unnecessary ability that she is hiding. At this time, someone puts a hand on the main character's shoulder and then addresses her. And he offers to work hard today. The young lady sees her friend and smiles. Well, the girl then hugs her and tells Rua not to think about what those children are telling her, because she always diligently fulfills her duties and never makes mistakes. That's why she and she are such good friends. The main character then turns to Ariana and says that she is so grateful to her for everything. After all, if she hadn't been there, she wouldn't have been able to stand all this. And the girl then replies that of course they are friends. But at this time the girl turns to Rua and points to one guy and then asks, "Is it really Mr. Galt?" The young lady then replies that she is. She understands that, at that time, as soon as she began the service, she was very nervous. Well, then the guy turned to the saint, and showing a wound on his hand, he asked if she could help him. The girl then replied that of course she had used her power earlier. However, it didn't work then and the wound still remained. The young lady then bowed and cried out an apology and also asked to be allowed to do it again. However, when she repeated this process, she realized that nothing was working, and she did not understand how she would cope with this in the future. Then the young lady finally used her power again and healed him. The guy then put his hand on the girl's shoulder and argued that everyone has failures at first, but maybe she wants to become his future saint. After all, he will also try for the future of their country. Therefore, let her not lose heart either. Since then, the young lady has kept these words in her heart. Galt also tried hard and rose to the rank of knight commander, so the girl understands that she must try too. And now she only looks at the knight with gratitude. Well then, Ariana turns to her friend with a grin and says that she will soon drill a hole in the guy with her eyes. The main character then screams that this is not true, and the girl then claims that she thinks about it, that Galt and Rua look good together. The main character then only becomes embarrassed, and her friend then claims that it is not written anywhere that saints cannot fall in love. So she takes Rua's hands and says she blesses them, because she only wishes happiness for her dearest friend. The main character then, with a smile on her face, replies that she also loves Ariana very much, and if she manages to find a loved one, then she will tell her about it. And the girl then answers with a smile on her face that of course, after which they take the pinky oath. A short time later, one of the temple workers is already rushing and screaming to be carried quickly. The young lady then wonders what happened, Well then, in shock, she realizes that Mr. Galt is being carried on a stretcher, and the girl thinks why this happened. The young lady looks at the guy who is barely breathing and thinks why it had to be him. During this time, someone claims that he was attacked by a magical beast while he was protecting his subordinates. But even the powers of holy healers are unlikely to help here, because the guy has very serious wounds, and apparently his hero's journey will end there. The main character then realizes in shock that this cannot be, and then she decides to heal Galt herself. A little time later, the girl already enters the room where this young man lies, and when he comes in, he thinks that no matter how painful it may be, she will save him. Even risking her life, she still wants to save this guy. After this, the young man's wounds begin to heal, and he looks as if he had never been wounded. However, all these wounds are transferred to the young lady. Ida then thinks that everything is fine now. The girl looks at Galt and realizes that she also needs to rest, after which she leaves from there and only to her room. And when she finally lies down, she thinks how much her whole body hurts, and she doesn't even have time to heal. The girl then closes her eyes and silhouettes begin to appear, after which the young lady wonders if these are the same ones, memories that flash a moment before plunging into eternal sleep. And apparently, she will say goodbye to her life. The girl then closes her eyes, from which tears are already beginning to flow. But a little later, she wakes up in shock and thinks, did she really survive? The girl then thinks that Mr. Galt should have gotten better too, and she also wants to see Ariana's face, meet and talk to her. However, then the maid who looked after the young lady, he asks if she really woke up. After this, the main character wants to say something, but the woman only claims that the girl quit her job, and she was chilling out in God knows where, and the young lady then wondered what she was talking about. The woman continues and claims that the young lady lay in bed for a whole month after receiving these terrible injuries, and of course, she sympathizes, but no one came to visit such a pathetic person like her. The young lady then thinks in shock what she is talking about, but the woman at this time claims that it would be better for her not to wake up. The young lady is still at a loss then, but she thinks that something else is more important now, after which she asks what about Mr. Galt. The maid then replies that he is injured. Madame Ariana cured risking her life, and the main character then thinks about what she is talking about, but the woman then only claims that unlike her, Ariana is a true saint. Rua still can't understand what she means, and what it means that Ariana healed the guy. But the woman then replies that she will tell you in a nutshell. And first, those two have a great time together. And secondly, the other day a decision was made about the wedding. A little time later, the main character is already rushing along the corridor and wondering why Ariana and Galt got together. And why did this happen? At this time, is everyone around talking about how Ariana and Galt are suitable for each other? And after all, the guy became the commander of the knights at such a young age. Therefore, he is a real folk hero, and he also quickly resolved the conflict with the neighboring state. And recently, the knights fought with magical beasts and suffered numerous losses, but they still survived against such enemies. And the count's daughter Ariana healed the commander at the risk of her life, as befits a true saint. The main character then thinks that even if Ariana healed him, well, her body still hurts. At this time, the girls in the corridor claim that Rua is the complete opposite of Ariana, and this girl is not even suitable as a candidate for sainthood. One of the girls then claims that she heard that a young lady ran away from the church to frolic with some boy, and her friend claims that that's when she was injured. That's why she was on business. There are also rumors that this is not the first time this has happened, and the girl now claims that she doesn't understand at all why the high priest accepted such a girl into the temple. After all, she even heard that Mistress Ariana took over her duties. So what kind of girl is shameless and also puts on such a modest face? Therefore, now the girls claim that this young lady is simply a disgrace for the temple. One of them claims that this is the pure truth after all. I heard all this from Mrs. Ariana. The main character at this time is breathing heavily and wondering if Ariana really spread all these terrible rumors. A short time later, the young lady runs up to the two. She tries to catch her breath, and Ariana asks if Rua has woken up yet. The girl then tells her friend to listen. Then he turns to Ariana and says that this is some kind of misunderstanding. After all, she is her friend, and once said. However, the girl only screams after this and asks what Rua is trying to do. After which, she turns to Galt and tells him to help her. The guy at this time only looks menacingly at the main character. Then he pushes her away and asks what she needs from Ari. The young lady then falls to the floor, and looking at Mr. Galt in shock, he asks what he is doing. However, the guy after this only claims that Ari told him everything, and that Rua was pretending to be her friend, used and abused her. But this is such inappropriate behavior. Therefore, the girl deserves only contempt. The young lady then realizes in shock that this is all not true, and then the girl tries to say that she healed all his wounds. But when she sees this guy's gaze on herself, she understands that all this is useless, and no matter what she tells her, they won't believe her. But then the girl thinks for what she used her healing abilities. The guy at this time turns to Ari and says that they are leaving. At this time, the girl touches the main character's face and says how compressed the poor and unhappy woman is, but she had long dreamed of seeing such an expression on her face. The girl also claims that Rua was a good toy and helped pass the time. And now Ariana asks why the girl can't forgive her. After all, they are best friends. After this, Ariana leaves and leaves Rua alone with her thoughts. The main character then remembers the one she loved, and now she starts laughing and also claims how stupid she was, and she was always lonely. From all the stress, the young lady's hair begins to lose color. At this time, several drunkards and one of them approach the young lady. She screams that the girl is in the way, and the other asks what the holy lady forgot in such a place. After which, one of the men says that they should look because this cannot be, and he asks if his friends have ever seen such white hair on someone other than the sick. But when the main character does not answer, one of them grabs her by the hair and tells her not to be silent, but also to answer something. The main character then tells him not to touch her, after which she grabs his hand, and the man is a little surprised, but then he feels how it hurts. And in shock, he asks what the hell, after which he falls to the floor and screams that it hurts a lot. The other guy then asks what happened, and the young lady understands that she has always hidden this power, which is the complete opposite of healing. Therefore, now with a smile on her face, the girl looks at her hand and understands that this is much more useful than healing. After which, Rua decides that she is not going to heal anyone. At this time, she is also being watched by a guy who is behind the tree. Is there a legend that several hundred years ago, during a time when a plague was raging in the kingdom of Zedo, one girl with healing powers saved the people, and a temple was built to worship the goddess Rush. The temple is an independent institution in which royalty does not dare interfere, and girls with the same abilities as Rush. They serve as saints and are used to heal people, and it is believed that the ability to heal appears in girls under 10 years of age. They are also usually born into aristocratic families. Outstanding candidates are officially elevated to the rank of saint, a title on par with royalty. Currently, there are several candidates for sainthood in the temple. However, instead of the saint, it has been empty for 10 years because a worthy candidate has not yet been found. The girl now understands that until she became an orphan, she lived in the Baron's family, and she dreamed of becoming a saint. Now the young lady just sighs and then realizes that several days have passed, but the hair color has not returned, and the young lady realizes that she had a severe shock after she was plunged into eternal sleep and reached the limit of her abilities. Therefore, now the young lady remembers her friend and thinks what she should do now. But at this time, someone comes up to the girl from behind and screams for her friends to just look because this is a defective saint, after which they ask what she forgot there. The main character just ignores these girls, but then one of them asks what it is and what's wrong with her hair. It's white. The main character still doesn't pay attention to them. But then the girls stop having fun After which, one of them approaches the young lady and slams her hand on the table. Then she asks if the girl is listening to her. After this, the main character just smiles and asks if this is about her, and then asks for forgiveness, but claims that her name is not a defective saint, which is why she didn't understand. The lady with purple hair then just asks what she is talking about the main game, not realizing that these girls have teased her before. They could pour water on her or ruin her clothes. But Ariana always stood up for her, and now the main character understands that the girls stopped their bullying, but all this time, she was no different from them and made her believe in their friendship in order to laugh. Now the main character takes her mug of tea and realizes that she was so afraid of those girls. And now, one of them screams that this rosary is intended for the rest of candidates for sainthood. Therefore, the girl should not appear there, after which she knocks the mug of tea out of the young lady's hands. Then he starts laughing. However, the main character after this only takes her hand and tells her to shut up. Then he asks if the girl can shut up for a second. The lady with purple hair then screams that she has a sudden fever on her arm. And then the girl screams in horror in pain. And when she sees a bruise on her hand, she asks what it is. Rua realizes that she has always hidden this ability, but she can take away the illness and wounds of those who are being treated and has always healed herself. But in reality, a girl can return the pain she took in the past to other people. And she once accidentally used this terrible power on her mother. The baby also thought that she would never see this ability again. However, now she only looks at the girl, who is writhing in pain. One of the girls then screams for the lady with purple hair to heal quickly, but her friends then say that they don't know for sure and they are scared. After which, one of them turns to the other and screams for her to do it, but the girl just refuses and says that suddenly something will appear for her too. The main character then realizes that the burn she suffered on this lady once belonged to her. Then the girls rushed around the hall with the sick, and one of them screamed that this man suffered from the fire of a magical beast and his legs were wounded, so let someone quickly heal him. The main character then immediately approached him and began to use her powers. However, when the girl took over the wounds, she realized that it was very painful. Ariana then just sat down on the floor and said that she was tired. After which, the girl also turned to Rua and asked if she would take on a couple of her patients. The main character was then a little surprised and realized that she was already at the limit and Ariana only cured 2. But the girl then only asserted that because of her friends should therefore help each other in difficult times, and then asked whether this was true. And the main character, looking at her friend, understood that she always stood up for her, so she still agreed. The girl was only happy about this and said that she adored Rua. The main character then answered with a smile on her face that she also loved Ariana very much. And now the young lady understands that back then she was really stupid and did not notice anything. Now the main character is snapping her fingers, after which the lady with purple hair is shocked, wondering if it really went away on its own. And her friend asks what happened. Rua understands that somewhere in the depths of her mind, Ariana, that I have long looked at her from high, and the girls whom I think in the same way have no idea what she is capable of. But this is a wonderful ability. After this, the main character heads back into the room and realizes that this would have happened anyway. And now, the girl understands that it's time for her to return to her room. But then someone turns to her and asks for forgiveness. After which, the guy asks if Miss Rua Restato is a factory. After this, the young lady sees Sven Zito Krona in front of her and understands that this is the second prince, who has a reputation as a capable and insightful young man. The prince, who is also dazzlingly handsome, claims that he would like to distract her for a moment because the girl knows about the dark side, this temple. But the young lady then asks what dark side he is talking about and what he needs. The guy then just holds out his hand and says that the girl has such wonderful talents, and then asks why doesn't she take his side and take revenge. The main character then looks at the guy's hand in shock. And a little time later, they are already walking through the garden of the royal castle. The young lady realizes that it is her first time there, but it is more beautiful and serene than the garden in the temple. His Highness at this time claims that he ordered everyone to leave the garden, so no one will disturb them, after which he invites them to sit down. And then the main character does so, and asks, "What about His Highness Sven? I meant by the dark side of the temple." The guy at this time replies that when they are alone, let her address him by name, and as soon as they unite, they can speak even more naturally. But the young lady then claims that they are not accomplices with him, after which he looks at the prince with hostility. However, he only smiles, then stirs his tea, and asks what the girl thinks about the fact that since last year the state has been suffering damage due to clashes with magical beasts. The young lady then asks if he wants to know what she thinks about the guy, and asks if she finds it all strange. After all, initially they were in the territories of foreign forests and wastelands. They could only be found in certain habitats, but they were not found in their country until recently. And the guy now claims that suddenly magical beasts began to appear inside the state in different places and attack citizens. The main character then asks if someone is controlling these creatures and points them towards people. And the guy then replies that she hit the nail on the head. Then he claims that this someone is the head of the temple. The guy also claims that he suspects the head of the entire clergy. And the main character then asks in shock if he is really talking about His Holiness. The young lady also remembers that when her family fell into eternal sleep due to a mysterious rare disease, those who learned of her power, and it was he who invited me to his place. So now the main character asks for goodbye, but says that she is confused. After all, even if the guy is right, then why would he do that? But then he answers that this is for Togo, to gain the unquestioning loyalty of citizens, and the more wounds, the more work the candidates have. But in order to help the victims, the faith of the people is concentrated in a holy place, and this is a place that can be compared in importance to the royal palace. The head of the clergy increases the authority of the church and can govern the entire country. And the girl then screams that this is simply disgusting selfishness, and to maim people as well as to manipulate believers for the sake of one's interests is simply disgusting. The guy then responds that she's right, and he doesn't think the guy is working on this alone. After all, 3 aristocratic families donating large sums of money to the temple are also involved, and their family is headed by Count Torbiez. The young lady then realizes in shock that this is Ariana's house, and our girl is involved in this. His Highness now claims that the head of the clergy is likely made a deal with someone who has the ability to control magical creatures, and his spies reported that this was Yuen from the Western people. The main character then thinks that this is the first time she has heard this name, and then asks if His Highness has been busy with the investigation all the time. The guy then replies that this is so, but there is one thing that he will not be able to cope with. However, if she does not help in exposing the crime of the head of the clergy and 3 families of aristocrats, then everything can work out. After which the prince extends his hand, and the main character only asks why it should be her. And the guy asks if he hasn't already answered this question. And after all, she has everything, abilities and possibilities. And he's not talking about the power of healing, and about the power that can cause pain, after which he asks if the girl minds if he calls her that. The guy also states that this power should be used wisely, and the young lady then realizes that they have already found out about her ability, and she didn't really think about it. Is there any benefit to having this power? So I practically didn't use it, but the prince is very perceptive, and the guy at this time claims that she will also have a great opportunity to take revenge on Miss Torbiez. The prince then claims that this is very, very mean, but they are no longer girlfriends. After this, the main character asks for forgiveness but asserts that she hasn't made a decision yet, and the girl asks if he will give her time to think. His Highness replies that of course he will also hope for a positive answer. A little time later, the young lady is already heading down the corridor and understands that if everything he said is true, then she cannot leave this situation unattended, because when solving such an important issue, a mistake cannot be made. And after all, she is no longer the idiot she was just recently, so she must personally verify the veracity of his words. Then the young lady already goes outside and hears someone calling Galt, and it turns out to be Ariana. She asks if the guy is injured anywhere, and the young man replies that everything is fine. After which, the girl with blonde hair laughs and says that she is. But even if he gets hurt, he doesn't have to worry. After all, if she healed him when he was on the verge of falling into eternal sleep, then she can definitely handle it now. Galt then says with a smile on his face how kind Ari is, after which he hugs the girl and thanks her for saving her, and also claims that next time he will definitely protect her too. The main character at this time only hides around the corner, and when he's about to leave, someone turns to Rua, and when the girl turns around, she sees the chief priest there, who asks if the girl is already feeling better. The young lady realizes that this is the head of the clergy, Phrixus Ronchatz, and he is a minister of the church who chose candidates for sainthood, as well as the owner of a calm disposition and respect for others with one single flaw. The man at this time turns to the main character and says that he is glad to see that she is already better, but he does not encourage her willful walk outside the church grounds, and hopes that she will think before doing something like that again. The young lady then just bows and says that of course, and she herself understands that Ariana is the source of such vile rumors, and it doesn't take a genius to come to such an obvious conclusion. But this does not prove her guilt in the attacks of magical beasts. The man at this time says that since she has come to her senses, let her begin her duties, and the girl understands that she is being told to immediately return to work. And after all, she has always worked without leaving a minute for rest, even when everyone else was enjoying their weekend. And worth remembering that this was actually an order from His Holiness. The man turned to Rua and argued that since she had not yet reached the level of other candidates, doesn't she think that for now she has to give it her all for her own good? And the girl is now thinking whether she should really give all her best for her own good, after which she realizes that she must learn more. A short time later, the young lady comes to the library and realizes that this is a royal library with its impressive collection, after which the girl realizes that maybe she can find something else about what His Highness Sven told her, and also about Yuan's family. After all, firstly, a distinctive feature of the people from a Western country is the golden color of their eyes and dark skin tone, and more precisely the Yuan family. Then they are an ethnic minority living deep in the forest, and they speak a unique language and also have the power to control magical creatures. In addition, their characteristic feature is a mark on the neck with the image of scales. The young lady then thinks about all these factors and realizes that she didn't know about any of this. At this time, someone turns to Rua and says that they have not seen each other since yesterday. It turns out that it is His Highness, and the main character then thinks why the distance has shortened in an instant. Well then, the girl rises and greets His Highness Sven. The guy then greets her back and tells her to sit down, and also claims that it is very prudent of her to come there herself to find confirmation of his words in the books. After which the prince asks if she has decided anything about the head of the clergy, and the young lady replies that she doesn't know yet, and His Highness says that nevertheless she studied Yuan. He then points to the guy behind him and claims that it is Shiji. The guy then claims that he is glad to meet the lady candidate for sainthood, and the young lady looking at him understands that he has a golden shade of eyes and dark skin. The prince at this time replies that this is Shiji Rubin, and he is an excellent assistant who can be trusted. Shiji comes from a common people who came from a Western country, and he was invited to serve. Thanks to your abilities. The young lady then realizes that the appointment of foreigners to the royal service is quite obvious. His Highness Sven has long been perceived negatively and apparently is a man free from prejudice. The guy now claims that Shiji has no direct connections with the Yuan family, but he was able to learn a lot from conversations with the merchants he met along the way. Therefore, if a girl wants to know more, then he can help in studying this topic. The young lady then rises from her seat, after which she bows and says that she is glad to meet you. And the guy claims that he will do everything for the benefit of His Highness. And the main character thinks how loyal he is. And the prince claims that before leaving, he wanted to say something. Then he says, what if the head of the clergy decides to make the next move? This will probably happen when everyone is already asleep. The young lady is then a little surprised by this. And the prince leaving claims that she wanted to see everything herself, so she will have a chance. After which, His Highness leaves the room, and when he heads up the stairs with a smile on his face, wondering if the goddess he was looking for is really her. A few days later, the main character is already heading down the corridor in the middle of the night and realizes that in order to check the words of His Highness Sven, she secretly slipped out of the room, but the girl understands that there is nothing suspicious there that even remotely concerns the head of the clergy. And also, if someone notices her, they will again decide that she is running away to spend the night with a man, and will spread new ridiculous rumors. Although the main character understands that she no longer cares, and she hopes that this will not last long. Well then, the girl sees someone's silhouette flashing through the window, and then wonders if someone just passed there. Then the girl follows him and realizes that this is a prayer tower, and they plan to demolish it, but in the end, they simply left it unattended. After which, the girl begins to look around and sees a man standing near the tower. The main character understands that this is the assistant to the head of the clergy, and at this time the man says that the guy was late and asks where he was. The young man then apologizes and claims that the area is huge, so getting lost is a piece of cake. The main character is then a little surprised because this language is also there. The mark on the neck is just like that of those people who know how to control monsters. So now the girl thinks that it's good that Mr. Shiji taught her some words, and she can make out some things. The assistant to the head at this time tells the guy not to keep His Holiness waiting and to hurry up. And the main character then sees in shock that the head of the clergy is coming out of there, and the truth, after which she wonders if they really made a deal, and she wants to see everything with her own eyes. The girl also understands that if she manages to distract the guards, she will be able to slip through. Well, then she looks at her hand and thinks that if she uses her power wisely, it might work out. After which the young lady realizes that she only has one chance and thinks that her ability cannot be used without touching. So now she approaches the guard and turns to him. The man at this time asks who she is and what she forgot there in the middle of the night. And the girl replies that she is a new maid in the temple, but she got lost and found herself there, after which she asks if the guy can tell you where the maids live. The assistant to the head then sighs and says that we need to return to that building, and then points to the path. And the main character then claims that he simply saved her and thanks the guy, after which she grabs his hand, and at the same moment the man feels a sharp pain in his head. He screams that his head is splitting and then faints from pain. And the young lady understands that she suffered a headache on him, which could well provoke fainting, and now in her thoughts she asks for forgiveness for this. But she understands that she also experienced this once, after which she enters the tower and snaps her fingers, recalling this pain. The girl sneaks through the boxes with something and gets close enough to hear them. The head of the clergy date time claims that he hopes this time the guy will show good results again. After all, the attack on the village of Morani was successful, and the young man replies that of course control over magical animals, and animals is easy for him, and the head will get what he wants. The young lady then realizes that she can definitely not make out the words about the attack of magical beatings on the village, and yet the head of the clergy is involved. But then the young lady peeks out from behind the boxes and wonders who is behind there, and another girl at this time turns to His Holiness and tells him to listen. The young lady then realizes in shock that this voice belongs to Ariana, and the young lady at this time asks if she is still a candidate, and then he claims that he wants to quickly take the place of a saint. Well, the man then replies that they are only at the beginning of the journey and asks how many days have passed since the moment the head of the knights agreed to marry her, when he hinted to him. The main character at this time closes her mouth in horror and understands that Ariana has intertwined with His Holiness to marry the commander of the knights. And after all this is for the sake of the saint's place. At this time the girl only rejoices and replies that thanks to him, everything is going well. And also, a folk hero, like Galt, is suitable for the Holy Virgin Ari, and she decided so a long time ago. The head of the clergy at this time says that such popularity among the people will definitely be useful. And the lady with blonde hair is now saying that her guy still can't let go of his unhappy love and walks around constantly sad. The main character then thinks about what kind of unhappy love she is talking about, and does the guy still remember her? And the lady with blonde hair then claims that since they should support each other, then he said that he could love her. Or the girl now claims that she will make him suffer, and the main character thinks in shock how she can say such a thing. The lady with blonde hair at this time says how arrogant this pathetic defective saint is, although His Holiness should know best about it. And the main character then thinks in shock, did the girl really always think that way, but she really trusted her? The head priest at this time says that Rua herself is quite useful, and no matter what she says, Rua is a rather good-natured girl. The young lady then thinks about the word useful and wonders if she has really been a puppet all this time. The blonde claims that if everything goes on like this, then they will cope without her as soon as she becomes a saint. Then the rest of the candidates will be her obedient dolls, and the priest then states that he believes so. But the first step is still the use of magical beasts for the real purpose. The main character then thinks about what the real goal means, and is this really just the first stage? But when the girl turns around, she makes a rustling sound, and the young man with dark skin then becomes a little wary, and then points to the box where the main character is sitting and claims that he heard a noise from there, so it seems like there is someone there. The main character then thinks what she should do, because she can't get caught. Then the prince's servant comes to the girl's aid. He takes the main character by the hand and drags her towards him, after which he also releases several rats, and when the lady with blonde hair sees them, she screams in horror, and the young man then claims that this is the source of the noise. But Ariana then screams, "What difference does it make? She can't stand disgusting dirty creatures, so let the guy do something quickly." The main character at this time is getting out of the tower. You understand that apparently, for Ariana, she was no different from these rats. When they finally get out the young lady, thanks Mr. Shiji for helping her. And the guy then says that there's no reason it was an order from His Highness, and he was keeping an eye on her and the head of the clergy. Then someone approaches the two and greets Rua. It turns out to be His Highness and says that the moon is beautiful today. The girl then turns to His Highness, but the guy then only claims that he is surprised by her unexpected desire to take the initiative and did not expect that she would take such risks. However, secretly spying on their gathering in a quiet tower is clearly not enough because they can come up with as many excuses as they want. Shiji compliments His Highness's words and states that they therefore need to find irrefutable evidence. And the prince then claims that for this he will say it again. After which the prince approaches the young lady and claims that he needs her strength and also asks if she wants to take revenge on them by making them pay for their crime. The main character thinks a little and then remembers the betrayal of her friend and what kind of doll she was in the hands of the high priest. Therefore, now the girl just bites her lip and answers that she agrees to join forces. And also, she will never forgive them. The next morning, the young lady wakes up in bed and realizes that last night she sneaked into the place where the secret meeting was held. This, of course, was reckless on her part, but the girl still doubts whether she understands exactly what she needs to do now. The young lady stretches her body and realizes that she feels good, after which she looks at the key that she placed on the chest of drawers and realizes that yesterday His Highness Sven gave her something before leaving. The guy claimed that since they were now accomplices, this key was hers. The main character then accepted the key and asked what it was for, and the guy answered that there was his personal secret greenhouse in the royal palace, and this was the key to it. He also claimed that a further strategy meeting would be held there, and let the girl try not to be noticed by anyone tomorrow at 3 o'clock. After which, he kissed the young lady's hand and declared that he would wait. And now the young lady thinks that His Highness is so pompous, but the young lady understands that she decided to trust anyway and will definitely stop the conspiracy. Heads of the clergy and Ariana. A short time later, the young lady is already looking for a greenhouse. Then he approaches a building and thinks that it's probably here. The girl then inserts the key and opens the greenhouse door and also realizes that His Highness should have already arrived. Then the girl sees that the prince is already sitting at the table with a cup of tea and is a little surprised. Shiji approaches Lady Rua and then claims that they were waiting for her, and His Highness greets the girl of the secret greenhouse and tells her to sit down, after which the young lady does so, and Shiji pours her tea. His Highness then claims that few people know about the existence of this place, and even when he was a child, he made this place his secret hideout. And the main character then asks if it's okay that he showed her such an important place, but the guy then replies that of course not, and didn't he say that they were accomplices, and they must share their secrets. The young lady then replies that it's good, and she understands, and His Highness claims that he already said that since they are on the same side, let the girl speak more freely. He then also suggests maintaining friendly relations from now on. The young lady then asks if he is talking about friendships, and the prince replies that she can use this place for any purpose, and for example next time she can read there in silence. And she loves books. The main character then realizes that His Highness is quite observant and even noticed how she admires the library. Therefore, he is still as insightful, and the young lady then says that she understands and addresses the guy by name, and then asks if they have a specific plan. The young man is happy that Rua called him by name, after which he also points to the paper standing on the table. And when the young lady takes it in her hands, the prince asks if she knows this man. The main character looks at him and replies that he is a dissolute viscount. Viscount Rose. Redmond is very popular, and there is not a person in aristocratic society who does not know his name. The guy is a recognized heartthrob and adorer of female attention, and will escape with a number of amorous connections. Redmond is a skilled speaker and a skilled diplomat, but his notoriety overshadows all his achievements. The Viscount had a mother, but his son grew up away from her due to the woman's flighty nature. This is what the temple maid said. His Highness now points to this man and claims that he is the third member of the aristocracy to team up with the head of the clergy. His role is that the Viscount uses his foreign policy skills to exchange unique goods with the Western country. However, Rose Redmond also needs to hide from transferring some of the goods outside of this official transaction. Therefore, he believes that they go to the Yuan family, and the young lady then claims that this is the whole family that has the ability to control magical creatures, and this is the price of their help. The prince then replies that the good thing is that she understands this, but there is something else. After all, magical animals are put to sleep and hidden at the bottom of boxes of goods, thereby organizing their transportation to the lands of their empire. Redmond is the one doing all this. Innocent people suffer because of him, and the main character now thinks that she will not forgive him. His Highness at this time claims that if they get official documents indicating the conclusion of this transaction from their owner, then the crimes can be revealed publicly. After all, they will have evidence to expose the plan of the head of the clergy. And the young lady then states that their plan is to obtain these documents, but she also asks how they can do it. The guy then shows only a blue seal and claims that in the coming days, a ball in honor of his birthday is planned in the house a century before, and he is invited as a representative of the royal family. The young lady then asks if he wants to have a birthday parade, and asks if the other members of the prince's family were left out, because if so, he was lucky. After this, the young man lies there laughing and claims that it's true, and the main character then notices that some kind of jewelry is hanging on Sven's ear. The guy then asks Rua what it is, and the young lady gets a little nervous and replies that it's nothing. Then he claims that apparently the prince is going to accept the invitation. The young man then answers that yes. Then he gets down on one knee and asks if she wants to go with him. The main character then looks at his smile and realizes that he is pompous, as she thought. Well, after all, the girl holds out her hand and claims that if it helps her revenge, she will gladly agree. Galt is sitting alone near the temple at this time. But then Ariana comes up to him from behind and closes her eyes and then tells the guy to guess who it is. The young man, then with a smile on his face, asks Ari if it is and says that the girl scared him. After this, the young lady just smiles and claims that he recognized her right away because Galt loves her so much. The guy then only sheepishly answers that perhaps, and the girl claims that she came to him about one very important issue for her, after which she pulls an invitation out of her pocket and offers to go to the ball together. The young lady claims that she has received an invitation for her family, and it is a celebration of the Viscount's birthday. The girl claims that she is sure it will be luxurious and magnificent there, and Galt, a little puzzled, claims that he doesn't really like such busy places. Hey, the girl then asks if he doesn't want to accompany her, but then she claims that she should go with Galt, and they propose to have a good time together at the reception. After this, the guy just gets embarrassed and replies that it's fine if that's what she wants. Well, then several knights approach them, and one of them screams, asking for forgiveness, and then turning to the commander. And he claims that this guy accidentally injured his leg during the fight. The guy immediately gets up and screams, "What is he talking about then?" so that he can even look. The commander then claims that he looks deep early, and if something is not done now, he may even lose his leg. Well then, the young man says that however they are lucky, because Ari is right next to them. And if she saved him when he was close to falling into eternal sleep, then this wound would heal in an instant. After which the young man turns to Ari and says that she can help Andre, then says how lucky they are that the candidate for sainthood is there. The girl then realizes, a little puzzled, that lately Rua has always helped her, so she hasn't used her ability for a long time. And the girl is now thinking how tiring it is to heal someone, but it would be nice to patch him up and raise his reputation. But the girl understands that she has just, with great difficulty, persuaded Galt to go to the ball with her, and she was very tired. So now the girl apologizes and claims that she would really like to help. But I was already so overworked at the service today. Galt then says that this is how I claim that Ari is very hardworking. After which you say that you shouldn't overwork yourself so much, and then you should go to the temple with the guys and ask another candidate to help, after which they say, okay, and head to the temple. S obliges, then says that he hopes he will be patched up well, and Ari then says that early it's not particularly serious and he'll be fine. And this is not so important because they will go to the ball, and that means she needs to choose a brand new dress. The girl also claims that she wants them to choose him together. Galt then agrees, but thinks what it means is not so important. And is it really that early on his subordinate is not important to her at all? But the guy then thinks that most likely everything is wrong, and Ari's thoughts are just now busy with the ball because she's looking forward to it, and the guy thinks, isn't his fiancée cute? At this time, the girl claims that she also wants new jewelry, and the commander of the knights says that he understands, after which he claims that there is a lot to buy. At this time, the high priest addresses them, and the girl then says that it seems that His Holiness is calling her, after which she says goodbye to Galt and says that then they will see each other again, and also let him not forget what they agreed on. The guy then simplifies and watches his wife leave. The main character at this time looks at one of the dresses and understands that there are still 5 days left before the ball. And after their decision to go to this holiday, the girl collected information about Redmond. And she completely forgot about clothes. So now she's thinking about what to wear. After all, she has no clothes or jewelry, and almost everything she had was ruined during stupid bullying, and she gave other things to Ariana at her whim. One day the girl turned to Rua and said with admiration what a beautiful ribbon she had. The main character then asked if it was true, and then claimed that today the woman whom she cured during the service sold her a handmade ribbon. Ariana then said that just as she claimed that, if so, then there is only one like her in the world, and it's very cool. The girl also claimed that she would like one too, and the main character then turned to Ariana, a little puzzled, and said that the girl had untied her. But after that, the blonde with a smile on her face only asserted that she had a good look here, and asked if this color was not too bright for Rui, and if the girl thought it would be okay if she wore it. Those girls will pick on her again. And if this happens, then Ari, of course, will stand up for her again. But the young ladies then understood that she didn't want to bother Ariana, and she would be sorry if someone stained such beauty. After which the main character argued that then it would be better for her to take it off and give it to Ariana, after which the blonde just smiled and asked if she minded. Then the girl tied this ribbon to her ponytail, and with a smile on her face, asked if it suited her. After that, Rua just smiled and replied that yes, it goes to Ariana too. Now the young lady understands that that was the first and last time the girl wore it, and she never saw Ariana wear it again. And apparently the girl just wanted to take the ribbon away from her. But the main character is now thinking about what she should do, and maybe she should buy something in the city. The girl understands that candidates for sainthood can receive money from funds collected by the temple, and if the candidate wants to receive payment, then she must submit an application, and a portion will be allocated to her. But the head of the clergy is responsible for this, and no matter how many applications she submits, but she never received consent. And the young lady wonders what's the matter. At the same moment, someone breaks into the girl's room, and the main character wonders in shock who it is. It turns out to be one of the maids, and claims to arrange a package for the lady from Mr. Shiji. The main character then asks if Mr. Shiji really sent this to her, but he also thinks that perhaps this package is from Sven, or the maid is now answering that it is so heavy, and she has no idea what's inside. And she asks why she should carry the thing that was sent for Rua. But Mr. Shiji is popular among the maids, and the girl loves to chase men. So of course, I decided to seduce him too. The young lady then realizes that her maid is still just as rude, and to be honest, she wants to transfer such pain to her. However, she must use this power wisely. Although now the main character is already beginning to doubt this, and then tells the girl to wait. The maid then asks what she wants from her, and the main character claims that her words insulted not only her, but also Mr. Shiji, so she expects an apology. The woman then screams, what is she talking about and why should she apologize? And the main character claims that Mr. Shiji is very devoted to His Highness Sven, and it would offend both of them if she seduced his assistant. The woman then screams that she was not trying to humiliate Mr. Shiji, and that the girl just wanted to hurt her. But the main character then only claims that she is so zealously showing contempt for her that she is even ready to drag in the inner circle of His Highness. So as far as the girl asks how narrow-minded she is, 3 is worth remembering that she is a servant and is monitoring candidates for sainthood. Therefore, let him know his place. The maid is only angry at this time, but still, she bows and asks for forgiveness, after which the main character says that she can go, and the maids agree. After this, the young lady is left alone and realizes that she only put her in her place. Then the main character opens the suitcase and realizes that it's time to see what Sven gave her. But when the girl opens the suitcase, she realizes that there is everything from shoes with a dress to accessories. A leaf also falls out of the dress. And when the main character opens it, she reads the contents. It says that as soon as the dress was sewn, it was immediately sent to Rua, and he entrusted this task to the famous capital tailor who usually sews clothes for candidates for sainthood. The guy also apologizes for not warning her and claims that he wanted to surprise her. He also claims that he picked out suitable jewelry. However, he asks if he was able to leave for her. The girl just smiles at this time. But then they see that the sheet has a continuation, and it says that the girl was probably still working without rest. So he applied through government agencies with a demand for a long leave in her name. Since the document was official, the director of the temple simply could not ignore it, and if anyone presented anything to her, then let the girl simply show the official permission attached to the letter and calm down and rest. The main character then thinks that he even took care of this, and it seems Sven can easily deal with anything, and he has such a character trait that makes him help people. The girl picks up the shoes and also examines the jewelry and realizes that everything is so elegant, but the girl also sees that the earrings are missing. After which, she goes to the closet and takes the box with her earrings. The girl opens it and realizes that she has only one earring left, and this is the thing that her mother bequeathed to her. She only had one of them left, but it seems she dropped the second one that time, when she saw a boy with bruises on his legs, and he healed him, however, when she said goodbye and began to run. Then, looking out of one of the windows and seeing my reflection, I realized that one of the earrings was missing. The girl then realized this in shock and almost cried. Now she thinks that it was quite a long time ago, and she hopes that this boy is doing well now. But then, for the first time, she used her healing ability on someone other than her family, and sometime immediately after, her family plunged into eternal sleep from an unknown illness. When the girl returned from her walk, it was already too late. And now, looking at the earring in her hand, the young lady realizes that all she has left of them is her mother's thing. But now, when the girl puts this earring on herself, she understands that she is no longer powerless and will make every effort to bring their plan to life. Soon the day of the ball arrived, and due to his status, Sven arrived first at the meeting place, but specially prepared a carriage for Rua to follow him. Shiji now looks at Mrs. Rua and asks if something is wrong. The girl then replies that no, and everything is fine. But the guy claims that if she doesn't feel well, then she should immediately let him know, because His Highness entrusted him with her protection. The young lady then, a little puzzled, says that she understood, but she herself thinks that as for Mr. Shiji, she noticed this even when they were in the library. But she feels awkward being alone with him because he is not outrageous and silent. But maybe she just misses the talkative Sven. However, when the girl looks out the window, she sees that this evening the moon has disappeared into the clouds, and for some reason she has a bad feeling. A short time later, the girl is already getting out of the carriage and is met by the prince. The guy claims that he was waiting for her, and the young lady understands that, as expected, he is dressed in a formal suit and Sven is graceful, as befits a royal person. The main character then understands that when a guy is so gorgeous, she is even a little embarrassed to stand next to him, and the young man at this time answers that, as he expected. The girl looks especially beautiful in this dress and jewelry, and he tried to find something to match her beautiful hair. The girl then thanks for the gift, and he says that she really enjoys his compliments, but there's no point in flattering her because she was born blonde, but money turned her hair white. So now, with a smile on her face, she asks if he thinks this is a strange transition. The guy is only silent for a little after this, but then asks if he told her about the strangeness. The guy then takes a strand of her hair in his hands and claims that those who say that are completely blind. After all, her hair turned white. This is a proof of strength after all the pain she has been through. So let the young lady be proud of them, and she will no longer think that there is any reason for shame. The young lady then cannot believe that he gave them such meaning, and the girl almost cries because of this, because before that they only laughed and mocked her hair. And the guy is now telling her to look because they match his shade so well, and they can even be called a couple. and also claims that truth, if we judge it this way, then it fits Shiji too. The prince's close associate then, in shock, doesn't even know what to say about the main character looking at this. He just smiles. Then he tells Sven not to drive Mr. Shiji into a dead end. His Highness then only looks surprised and then moves closer to the young lady. And he says that she finally laughed in front of him and then smiles himself. The guy extends his hand to the young lady and asks if it's time for them to go. And the main character then takes his hand and answers that yes, after which they leave. And Shiji, looking after them, only wishes good luck in the battle. When they enter the ballroom, the prince turns to Rua and, pointing to one person, he claims that this is Viscount Redmond. First, he greeted him. Well, although this guy seems frivolous, he is actually surprisingly insightful. And the prince then claims that the rumors do not lie and the man really has a soft spot for ladies. The young lady replies that apparently so, and she would like to come closer, but His Highness then says that the girl should not rush because she needs to wait for the right moment. And the young lady replies that she knows. At this time, someone else turns to these two and asks if this is His Highness Sven. And the man asks if the guy was able to attend such a significant day for the Viscount. The guy then replies that this is so, and then says that he and the Duke have not seen each other for a long time. The young lady looks around and realizes that there are a large number of people close to Sven in status, and he cannot move freely, so the girl decides that she will act. The young lady understands that first she needs to carefully examine the hall, and then she looks at one of the waitresses and thinks what it is. After all this, girl looks bad and is probably very tired, and she also seems to be seriously puzzled by something. Therefore, now the main character approaches her and understands that she will start with this girl. However, then someone just screams out, "Who appeared at this ball? And is it really Rua herself?" The main character is then a little surprised and realizes that this is Ariana's voice. And next to her, of course, is Mr. Galt. The girl then just smiles and says that this is really Rua, but she didn't think that they would meet in such a place. And the main character then turns to Ariana, but she understands that they have not communicated since the girl betrayed her. And now the main character is thinking whether she and Mr. Galt are really going to be so feignedly nice to her after what they did. The blonde at this time only asks why the girl is there, and is she really there alone, because it seems that Rua is without a partner. After which the lady with blonde hair with a smile on her face asks if her friend is not alone at this big reception. She also turns to Galt and asks if he agrees, and the guy then, a little puzzled, replies that there are such people. The main character then replies that she was invited because she has some connections, and of course, she did not come alone. Ariana then asks what she is talking about, and claims that her friend intrigued her, but then asks where her companion is. The girl also says that Rua's hair color is so white, and if you look closely, the girl looks like an old woman. The main character then almost loses her temper and thinks through whose fault she became like this. But then she remembers His Highness and realizes that she needs to calm down. Therefore, now the young lady with a smile on her face claims that she also likes this hair even more than the previous one. After this, Ariana just sighs and realizes that this is not at all interesting. Galt puts his hand on her shoulder and offers to go, because this girl has already mocked her and there is no need to behave according to decency, as well as maintain a conversation. The main character then thinks whether the guy is talking about decency, and if so, Mr. Galt sees it. But the blonde at this time only screams that she has not yet been convinced whether Rua really came with her partner, and if so, she wants to take a look. After which the girl turns to the main character and asks if it was the guy who gave her such a beautiful dress and jewelry, and she even put on earrings. So now the lady with blonde hair says to show her closer, and then the main character thinks that she doesn't want to, and let this girl not touch them. The young lady then closes her eyes and thinks about what is going to happen. But at the same moment, someone pulls her towards him and apologizes for leaving her alone. It turns out to be His Highness, and then he is greeted with Mrs. Torbiaz and the commander of the knights. The guy also asks if this is their first meeting. Well, it seems to him that he saw the respected knight commander at the initiation ceremony before. The brunette, then in shock, turns to His Highness Sven and asks for forgiveness for not greeting him immediately, after which he bows. And the prince replies that everything is fine. But today, it is possible without such formalities. Ariana then turns to His Highness Sven and claims that she is seeing him for the first time. Then she claims that her name is Ariana Torbiaz. The girl then asks if His Highness came with Ruya, and the prince replies that she is right, and he came with Rua, but unlike them, they are not engaged. And the blonde then asks what then connects the second prince with the orphan candidate. The guy then just puts his hand on the young lady's shoulder and replies that it's true, and she is an orphan. But she used to live in the Baron's house, and her parents died early, and the girl was forced to live in the temple. And he recently learned about these tragic circumstances, since he is involved in helping orphans. Hey girl, are a candidate, you are saints. With a painful past, he asked her to work with him on a program to help the disadvantaged. Having such a connection, he decided to invite her there as a thank you. And now, the guy turns to Rua and then asks if this is true, and the girl replies that yes and understands that it turns out that Sven has already prepared a false excuse on the basis of which they can be close. The young ladies also understand that their conversation attracted the attention of others but did not arouse suspicion. One of the women at this time claims that it seems that she has never met that white-haired girl in high society before, even though she is from the family of a baron. But before this was a big story, and the parents left their daughter because of an outbreak of the disease, so they say, what a pity it is. But they also claim that this girl became a candidate for sainthood. And the young lady, he understands that one should not ignore the fact that His Highness is involved in helping orphans. And after all, charitable activities have a positive impact on public opinion. Therefore, the girl understands that apparently everyone took it favorably. And that was Sven's plan, because arousing sympathy was the right decision. The young lady also understands that along the way, he also managed to improve his reputation. And Ariana then says what he means, but then he still falls silent, and with a smile on his face, asserts how noble this is on the part of His Highness. But she also claims that in the future, she would also like to get to know him better. And the prince then replies that yes, of course. After which the girl goes back to Galt and says that her favorite melody is playing now, so she invites her husband to dance in the very center. The girl also says goodbye to His Highness and says that they will see each other again. Galt then sees his girlfriend already running and tells her to wait. But His Highness then stops the guy by placing his hand on his shoulder, after which he turns to the head of the knights and claims that his father was an excellent ball, and the guy's skill is no longer behind him, as are his heroic exploits. After this, the guy only gets embarrassed and screams that His Highness doesn't have to say something like that. But the prince then claims that, however, he is somewhat naive and apparently does not have the best taste in regards to ladies. The young man is then a little surprised. His Highness looks at him with a smile, after which he turns to Rua and says that they can go. Ariana, watching all this, just bites her nail and claims that she will not allow this to continue. A short time later, the girl is already dancing with her husband, and His Highness at this time turns to the young lady and asks if she will give him a dance. The main thing of the game does not answer is that dancing is not her thing at all, and the guy then, almost crying, says that it's a pity because he would like to dance with her, and the young lady then replies that if so, she doesn't mind. So if she hears a familiar melody, she will be glad to dance with him. The young man then asks if this is true, but says that she should remember that I promised him, and he would like to dance with Ruya as soon as possible. The guy also claims that he wonders whether this power is his. After all, he is, after all, the second prince, and asks the young lady what he is talking about. After which he just laughs But then the same maid catches the eye of the young lady, and Rua realizes that she recently wanted to talk to her. However, then the girl also sees a knife in the hands of the waitress and is surprised by this. Rua then turns to Sven and tells him to look at what the maid has in her hands. The guy then also looks there and says that this is not good, and he also believes that this girl came for a specific person. The young lady then asks who, but when she sees the girl heading towards the Viscount, she understands that soon the melody for the dance will sound, and then there will be no people near him. His Highness at this time argues that this waitress needs to be stopped, and the main character agrees. The girl at this time only desperately asserts that she must plunge this idiot into eternal sleep, and even if it costs her life, she must do it. But at this time, His Highness takes her hand and takes away the knife, after which he asks for forgiveness, but claims that this is not a very suitable thing for a waitress. The girl then asks in shock why His Highness Sven did this, and the guy only claims that she should not make any noise. And if this is indeed an assassination attempt, then he asks if the girl thinks that it should not be made public. The prince says that her behavior is alarming and asks if the girl could explain what is happening. A short time later, they go outside, and the girl claims that her name is Charlotte Mail. She came from the village to work and ended up as a servant in the Redmond mansion. The girl heard that he was a womanizer, but she really needed money and had to feed her family. The maid claims that she worked there for about 2 years, and during that time, nothing happened. But then she was going to get married and leave her job. His Highness is now asking the local for congratulations and asking who her fiancé was. The girl then replies that he was a young man who was a friend from her childhood named Alan. He also left the village and opened a bakery on the outskirts of the kingdom's capital, and they met by chance when she was in town shopping. His Highness is now asking if she is talking about the bakery on the outskirts of the capital that Alan owns, after which the prince says that this is a bakery called Viola, and he has been there, and the guy also claims that the freshly baked cream buns there are very tasty. Charlotte then, in shock, asks if His Highness knows this place, and the guy answers that when he was a child, he hid his identity and secretly went into the city. Now he no longer indulges in such pranks, but then he was very curious to personally learn about the life of the people. The girl then claims that if Alan found out about this, he would definitely be surprised, and the girl claims that, to be honest, they dreamed of getting married and running a shop together. But when she announced her intention, Redmond immediately invited her to his room. At that very moment, he threw her onto the bed. The main character is now in shock and says that this is terrible, and the girl claims that she was disgusted and resisted, but the guy hit her on the cheek and forced her. He claimed that he had his eye on the girl for a long time and told her not to resist because she was not even a virgin, after which he also claimed that this was the master's order, and he said that he would have fun at least for the last time, and now the girl is talking about it with tears. The main character then screams what a bastard this guy is, and His Highness at this time asks if the girl told anyone about this. The young lady then claims that it was painful, but she honestly confessed to Alan, and the bruises on her face and body only confirmed her words. His Highness is now asking what he did, and the girl claims that she has never seen him in such anger, and the guy went to demand a confession of guilt, although the young lady stopped him, saying that she didn't want this to affect the bakery. But he simply could not close his eyes to this, and Redmond would never have heeded the accusation of a commoner, and on the contrary, he was amused. The man found leverage over Alan and closed his shop. The main game is not now wondering what kind of guy this Viscount is, and she cannot forgive the head of the clergy for being on the side of such a person. His Highness is now asking if that is why the girl decided to plunge into eternal sleep, and the young lady claims that since she had previously worked there, it was not difficult to get into the reception, and she did not care about the price, but she was going to plunge Redmond into eternal sleep and was even ready to say goodbye to life. The girl also claims that fortunately she and Alan had not yet gotten married, so he would not have anything to do with this crime. And she thought that if she were not there, he would be able to get his business back and his favorite bakery. So now the girl screams, if only she could fix everything. The main character then tells Charlotte not to cry and claims that they have the same goal and they will take care of her too. After which the young lady turns to Sven and asks what he thinks about this. The guy then claims that if her words are true, then he will also make every effort, because he would be very ashamed if he left the crying girl without attention. The main character then replies that she expected him to say that, after which she thinks that Redmond should just wait because all his sins. Return to it, the girl and his highness are now returning to the hall, and the guy says that even though they have sent Charlotte home for now, but besides this, Rua is sympathetic to the core, and she even risked making changes to their plan because of this. The young lady then asks who else recently said something about leaving the crying girl. And the young lady is now claiming that they will get close enough to Redmond to be able to get those documents. And in her free time, she will try to figure out what can be done in Charlotte's situation. His Highness then asks if she will do this in her free time. He understands that this desire nevertheless comes from a pure heart, but as if her kindness would prevent their revenge, although this is only his fear. Well, at that time, the girl hears one of the melodies starting to play and claims that this is a falsetto for saints, and this is her favorite melody. The prince, at the same moment, grabs the girl by the hand and begins to drag her, which makes the main character a little surprised and asks Sven what happened. But the guy, just with a smile on his face, asks if she remembers that she promised him a dance and then says that it's time to go. After that, the two of them dance together, and everyone in the hall admires them. They say how beautiful the dance of His Highness Sven is, and the girl from the family of Baron Restato is also not bad. One of the women claims that Miss Tobias is also fine with the Knight Commander. True, they are not so refined. And now Ariana only snorts in response to these words. Galt then turns to the girl and asks if something is wrong. And the young lady then turns to him and, with a smile on her face, replies that there is nothing wrong. It just seemed depressing to her that some bugs were trampling under her feet. The guy then looked a little puzzled at his bride because he didn't understand what she was talking about. His Highness at this time turns to Rua and says that she dances well, but asks what is wrong with her face, and I would like to smile at her. However, the main character then replies that she can't and she hasn't danced for so long that she's very nervous. But when the young lady turns around, the prince sees an earring on her ear, and he realizes that she is the same as the earring on his ear, after which she just smiles and realizes that after all this earring belonged to her. The guy remembers how he sat on the bench all wounded and realized that this was not good and how unlucky he was. After all, the young man secretly went out into the city and everything was fine until he got into trouble with a stranger who clung to him. It turned out that he was able to fight back and disappear from sight, and the guy then realized that he was still too young for such a thing. The young man also understood that if he did not return to the palace, soon everyone would begin to worry. And then I remembered the words of everyone around me in the palace. The guy was an unwanted second prince, and Mother's second birth was more difficult than the first, causing her to lose a lot of red fluid. And even the court saint could not save her, and Mother plunged into eternal sleep, leaving the young man in a situation where everyone was disgusted by the unwanted prince. And his older brother whispered to him that his red eyes were the red liquid that he sucked out of his mother, and the young man understood that this was complete nonsense. But because of the failed youngest son, no one questioned the fact that the throne would go to the eldest, and he was not interested in power, but who would want to be neglected just because he is not a wanted child. So the young man raised that such an attitude is disgusting, and he will prove his strength. The guy decided this a long time ago and decided to prove to his brother how wrong he was, after which he began to go out into the city. But the thoughts that he had no luck did not disappear anywhere, and now the guy thinks that he is a little tired. But then someone turned to him and asked if the guy was okay. It turned out to be a young lady, and the boy then asked who she was. The girl then only looked at his wound and argued that it must be painful for him, and then she claimed that she would heal him. The young lady also claimed that it was a little painful, but she could cure it, and the guy thought, did this girl really have the power of a candidate saint? But why did she say that this one would be painful? And maybe she was not used to using her ability. So the young man argued that there was no need for this because he could return as soon as he met with the servant. And the truth was that there was no need to worry about such bruises. But the main character then screamed that it was still worth it, and she was worried. The girl also screamed that she wanted the guy to feel better, and therefore touching his legs, she claimed that she would help. Then she began to use her power, and when she healed the guy's legs, she said that everything was fine now. And then the girl remembered that she needed to return home quickly, and then she said that it was time for her to go. And she said goodbye to the guy and also told him to take care of himself. The young man then accepts that he did not recognize her name, but the girl used to treat him so kindly. And this was the first time then the boy thought that some goddess had saved him. But when he looked at the floor, he realized that it was all that girl's earring. Therefore, taking her in his hands, he thought that maybe they would meet again. The prince understands that meeting that girl became his support, and now no one will dare to call him an unwanted child because he gained strength for this, and he had no clues to find that girl until he learned about the dark side of the temple and invited her to become an ally. But he constantly doubted that she was the right girl. And also, during their communication, I caught myself thinking that it would be good if it were like that. And this girl is the one who saved him then, and the guy has long dreamed of meeting her. Rua, at this time turns to the guy and says that he looks very happy. And the prince, with a smile on his face, replies that it seems she is right. And then he remembers how that time the girl took his wounds for herself. And to this day, she keeps the same kindness in her heart. But he thinks, what if this kindness will interfere with her revenge? Then the one who gets his hands dirty, instead of her, will be him after all while he was searching. That young lady suffered so many wounds, so this time he will become her support, and also with a sword and shield. So he thinks, let the young lady stay next to him until the end, after which the two finish the dance. And the ladies in the audience immediately start clapping. They say it was just wonderful. But then someone else joins in the clapping and says it was great. And also, His Highness is very talented. It turns out to be the Viscount. And now he says what an insolent person His Highness is. After all, he is in the company of such a beautiful white lily. Then he looks at the young lady's breasts and asks why not introduce her to His Highness. The main character thinks how arrogant his eyes are and understands that she needs to introduce herself since he started talking to us. But in order to be alone with him, she will have to take on the role of a hunter for male attention. And the young lady wonders if this is her easiest way. The Viscount at this time says that the girl is not engaged to His Highness, and it is precisely such beautiful flowers that have that dangerous charm, which makes you want to rip it off. The man then takes the young lady by the chin and says that he definitely wanted to know the name of the white lily. But then someone puts his hand on the Viscount's hand and asks for Togo. Lower your hand. The prince then claims that this girl is not really his bride, but she is his partner today. So he thinks he shouldn't interfere anymore. The young lady then turns to the prince and says that everything is fine because she will figure it out. But the young man, then a little puzzled, asks Rua what she is talking about. The girl then approaches the Viscount and with a smile on her face, asks for forgiveness for not introducing herself right away, after which she claims that her name is Rua Restato. The man is only a little embarrassed after this, and the main character claims that she came there at the invitation of His Highness Sven, but is afraid that she is not suitable for him as a partner because she is just an accompanying person and nothing more. Yes, and besides, she would prefer a closer relationship with him. The girl now understands that she would like to hurt him now, but it's too early. After this, the Viscount just grins and asks if she is talking about a close relationship. And the young lady then whispers in his ear, what is he thinking? Because later they can only be the two of them. Hey, the girl asks if he will refuse a birthday present. After this, the man just grins and asks how he dared to do such a thing, after which he says that the lady should come to his room after the next tune and let him consider it an invitation. After which the man kisses her hand and offers to enjoy time alone. The young lady then leaves and realizes that she has succeeded. She also says how difficult it is to pretend to be in love, and she was worried that they were attractive enough in this regard. Well, then the main character looks at the prince's face and asks what it is, and also if something happened. After all, his smile is very scary. His Highness at this time turns to Rua and tells her to first extend her hand to him. The young lady does so, but asks why, and the prince replies that he will erase the touches of this idiot. But then the prince begins to rub her hand as hard as he can, and the young lady thinks that he will rub the hole like that. The guy at this time only asks where the young lady learned this, and the main character replies that she simply imitated those girls who were near Redmond. Well, the prince claims that nevertheless, leaving him aside and being alone with Rodmond was not part of their plans. However, the young lady then asks if the affair won't play into their hands if he loses his vigilance this way, and it's much more convenient for her to use the ability on a naked body. His Highness then wants to say something else, but still refrains, and he just claims that he's finished, and the young lady looks at her sparkling hands and then thanks. The prince then says that she is not a princess who needs to be protected, and he understands this. But he says that the girl should be on guard when she enters Redmond's room, and he will wait nearby in case if something goes wrong. And now the prince asks if they agreed. The young lady then replies that yes, and let him trust her. The disgraced one then just smiles, and she says that she is far from a saint, but a real villain. A little time later, the main character is already knocking on the Viscount's bedroom, and he tells the girl to come in. The young lady then does so and apologizes for the intrusion. And when she looks in front of her, she realizes that this is definitely Redmond's bedroom. After which the girl sees a man sitting on the bed and thinks that probably the documents certifying the agreement are in another room. So first, she must find out for sure. The man at this time turns to the young lady and claims that he knew that she would be intrigued by her, after which he drinks wine and then pours another glass, asking how about a glass of wine. Well, the main character asks for forgiveness and claims that she doesn't drink, and the guy then asks if that's true. Then he pulls the young lady by the hand and says, what if so? Then they won't beat around the bush, and it's worth clarifying the situation before having fun. Therefore, the man asks what her real goal is, and the main character then wonders in shock whether he really understood everything. Shiji, at this time, walks around the estate and realizes that just in case, he decided to conduct reconnaissance around the circumference of the mansion. However, he did not notice anything unusual, and he wonders whether His Highness Sven and Mrs. Rua are coping. The guy realizes that he needs to act urgently if something goes wrong, but then he sees someone else, and he wonders if Mrs. Torbiaz is there. But the guy then doesn't understand who is next to her, because of the robe he can't see, but judging by his height, it's not the commander. The man then realizes that Mrs. Torbiaz slipped away from the reception to secretly meet with this man, but there must be a warehouse in which they are located, and the guy is now wondering what they are doing there. But when he understands what all this can lead to, it's too late, because when he looks back, he realizes that he missed them. After which, Shiji begins to run, and realizes that if his thought is correct, then there will be trouble. And then he must immediately inform His Highness and Lady Rue about this. The young lady at this time asks the Viscount what he means, but the man then tells her not to pretend, and asks if she wants wealth status or wants to gain his trust for the sake of patronage. After this, the girl just sighs and understands that he still didn't guess about their plan. so she needs to answer something. Well, now, the young lady also realizes that the Viscount is holding her wrist, and the man at this time cries out for her to respond quickly, and the young lady understands that his true character has been revealed. However, in order to use his ability, you need to touch a bare area of the body, and to be more precise, you need to touch it with your palm. The girl understands that it is necessary to relax his vigilance and remove the stiffness from his wrist. So now she, with a smile on her face, claims that what she wants, this is an emotional high from the Viscount. The man then only asks if she wants an emotional uplift, and the girl claims that she is a candidate for sainthood. She knows how tiring it is to exist in a cramped temple, and it's like numbness from within. Therefore, the girl claims that she does not feel enough lift, but with the Viscount, she can enjoy something like this without any consequences. And her Naledi asks if this is true. After this, the man just starts laughing and screams out what kind of defect this is, and how can it be that he comes across a slutty saint, because it's amazing. The man cries out that there is nothing strange in the fact that a woman like Charlotte did not want to be fucked, but this is the kind of woman he wanted. The young lady then asks if he is talking about Charlotte, but the man claims that she is a former maid, and she was faithful to her fiancé, which is why she resisted. She also fell silent only after 5 or 6 blows, and her body was not bad, but then her fiancé showed up, and he caused so much trouble. So now the Viscount says, what a damn commoner this is, and the main character understands that he is really terrible, and her revenge will be merciless, which is why now the young lady claims that she is not like Charlotte. After which the Viscount lets go of her hands and begins to tear the dress, after which he asks if the girl will entertain him. The main character then puts her hand on his shoulders and replies that of course they will have fun together. However, when the young lady uses her power, the Viscount begins to feel a terrible itch begin to appear on his back, and he immediately begins to scratch them, crying out at how itchy it is. The main character then turns to Mr. Viscount and says that the poison that was mixed into the wine has begun to act, and now he only feels itching, but gradually his condition will only worsen, and she will not give him the available antidote. So after a few minutes, he will fall into eternal sleep. The man then goes into shock, and the main character understands that this is all a bluff, however, and this really looks like a type of skin disease that she healed in the past. A person is attacked by an unbearable itch, but of course it does not threaten life, and above all, if you think about it calmly, she didn't have the opportunity to add poison, but apparently the itching was too strong, and the man couldn't think about it. The Viscount is now screaming for her to stop and quickly give him the antidote. But the young lady then says that he has documentation of the trade in goods that he conducts with the West. And the man then thinks in shock how this girl found out. Well, the young lady just tells him to tell him where this new documentation is. He then screams that he won't tell, and the young lady then says that nothing can be done, and she didn't want to take his life. But in this case, she would have to. The man then screams for her to wait and talks about the next room in the office. And the young lady asks where exactly in the office these documents are located. And the man replies that they are on the table in a drawer under lock and key. And the key is behind the picture. After which the man screams again that his whole body is very itchy and tells the girl to give him an antidote. And the young lady realizes that she doesn't have it. But then she takes a paper out of her pocket and says that it's not all yet, but she needs a seal and a signature there. After which the young lady passes it into the Viscount's trembling hands. But when the man reads what is written there, he asks in shock what kind of absurd content this is. The young lady then claims that it is a bill for damages to Charlotte Mayle, the girl he defamed. And the girl then understands that this document was composed by Sven on the spot. The guy then asked if he could add another 0, but 2 and 3 are possible. Well, the man is now screaming at what kind of stupidity this is, and is this really compensation for just a former maid? And looking at the amount, he screams that it is still huge, The young lady then claims that he also put undue pressure on her fiancé's shop, and this also applies to damages. And that's not all she's heard about. The girl claims that she conducted an investigation, and it turned out that there were many victims like her, and some of them became pregnant and were then thrown out onto the street. And now the main character claims that if possible, I would like to allocate alimony for the upbringing of these children. And what Charlotte said, taking into account this part, this is a little more, therefore, now the young lady says that your life should not be measured by wealth, and asks how he thinks. The Viscount then only swears, and the young lady tells him to quickly put a seal and signature, after which the man does it anyway. And when he puts the stamp, he hands her the document and asks the girl if this is what she wanted. The main character then reviews the document and answers that, of course. And the man then screams that if she is satisfied, then let him give the antidote. But the main character then says that alas, he does not exist. And the man then looks at her in shock, and the young lady claims that he will slowly fall into eternal sleep, regretting what he did. After which, she leaves the room and says goodbye to Viscount Redmond, and also claims that the night with him was very unpleasant. But the man then screams that everything can't be like this, and let the girl not leave, but his body still itches a lot, and he screams that he doesn't want to plunge into eternal sleep. Well, then he still loses consciousness, and the young lady then thinks that perhaps she has intimidated him too much. And apparently, fear overcame the itching all over his body, because the guy fainted from this, so what a pathetic man he is. But the young lady understands that in any case, everything is settled with Charlotte, and all that remains is to get the documents about the deal with the West. His Highness meets the girl on the way out and says that she did a good job, and also states that he is glad that she is okay. The young lady then says that Sven has arrived, and the guy replies that of course, and it looks like things are going well, but then he in shock tells her to wait and asks what happened to her dress. After which, he gives his cape and tells her to put it on and cover the front part properly. After which, he says that this is the work of Redmond, and this man is simply terrible, so His Highness asks how he can deal with him. And the young lady then thinks what he is talking about and claims that she has already dealt with him. Then he says that they should quickly pick up the documents because they are in the next room. His Highness then turns to the young lady and states that he wants her to take more care of herself. But then the young lady then says that it was indecent, after which he apologizes, and the prince then only becomes embarrassed. And then they claim that he didn't mean it, after which he also addresses the young lady and states that he has made sure that everything becomes clear from now on. And the main character, looking at how he leaves, thinks what it means to be clear, and the whole guy is so strange. After that, they enter that same room, and the young lady says that the key is behind the picture, and the documents are in the drawer of the desktop. Then they take a picture of it, and there really is a key, after which they open the chest of drawers and keep the documents. The prince then claims that this time he was not the main actor in the play, and thanks to it, the goal was achieved. After which His Highness folds this paper and puts it in his pocket, and the young lady then says that they need to leave quickly. But at the same moment, Shiji bursts into the room and addresses His Highness. He screams that he knew he was still here, and the prince then asks Shiji if it is, and then asks why the guy is so disheveled. His Highness's associate then asks for forgiveness, but claims that he has an urgent report. After all, he became an eyewitness to Mrs. Torbiaz's secret meeting with someone, and it was in front of the warehouse. The main character then wonders if it was Ariana, and the guy then claims that this is just his assumption. However, perhaps this man is from the Yuan family, and it seems that he was hiding all this time. And also, speaking about the magical beasts that will be brought to their country, then if they are sent to Redmond's warehouse, that now things are bad, and at the same moment they hear piercing screams. The main character then asks what happened, and Shiji then just gets angry and claims that it seems the worst guess turned out to be true. After which, His Highness and the main character go out onto the terrace and see people running away in horror. And in the middle of the room, there is a large monster. The main character now screams that this must be the work of Ariana, and the girl thinks what the purpose was in all this. After which the young lady sees Ariana herself, who is watching all this horror with a smile on her face. The main character understands that allowing magical beasts to attack the estate was originally the plan of the head of the clergy, because by healing all the wounds they received, they will be able to win the faith of these people. And even if the aristocrats swore confidence in the royal family, it is very likely that too much authority of the temple will cause fears, and there will also be a possibility that their plan will be revealed. Ariana understands that it is necessary to choose in advance the estate that will be attacked. And of course, their plan did not include an attack specifically on the house of Viscount Redmond. But now, the girl with a smile on her face says that today only aristocrats have gathered, and that it would be a sin not to take advantage of such a chance. But since the magical creatures had been hidden right in the warehouse for a century, this still became a very rash decision, and she would need to apologize to the Viscount. But then the girl with a smile on her face thinks that let her cute little animal attack, but she also tells him not to get excited and try not to plunge them into eternal sleep, because when she returns to the temple, I and all of them will have to heal, but this is only if she has a desire. Well then, the young lady tells him to do it all, except for the white-haired girl. The blonde also remembers how she had conversations with a guy who knows how to control this monster, and asked if they had reached an agreement, and also if he could order the animal to be cruel only to the white-haired girl. Therefore, now she smiles, and thinks how great this is, after which she realizes that Rua is pathetic and unhappy, but at the same time full of conceit. If she had been useful and remained her obedient toy, the girl would have allowed her to live and continue the game. But now, the blonde screams for the monster to tear this idiot into small pieces. Galt only screams for everyone to remain calm and not panic and to run. He also shouted that the main entrance was blocked and they should quickly evacuate through the back door. However, when the monster began to growl, the aristocrats were only in shock and began to run around in panic. And the guy understood that they were consumed by panic, so the evacuation was not progressing. But if he had the ball, he could have fought the beast. However, Ari said that the sword was not suitable for use, and he had to insist on his own, so the guy thinks that he should quickly find Ari, who disappeared during all this. And now the young man hopes that she is safe. The main character at this time goes down the stairs, but looking at all this commotion, she screams that there will be so many victims, and all this is the work of Ariana. His Highness then claims that she did it without hesitation, after which the prince turns to Shiji, and the guy then speaks to His Highness that he prepared everything and then hands him the sword. The prince then claims that this sword is his favorite, and he left it in the carriage, and Shiji then claims that he was just heading to His Highness and decided to take him just in case. And the prince then says that as he thought an excellent subordinate will be able to help out their difficult moment, well, there is no main game. Then he cries out whether he will really fight with this creature because it is dangerous. But the prince then claims that he is very good at this and will not yield even to the commander of the knightly order. Sven also turns to his subordinate and asks if he also brought weapons, and the guy replies that, of course, after which, His Highness tells the guy to find a person from the Yuan clan, because if he controls a magical beast, he must be somewhere on the territory of the estate, and when the guy finds him, let him arrest him. And Shiji then tells His Highness that he will do as he orders. The man then turns to Rua and then tells her to take these documents and kill. The girl then takes the paper but claims that she cannot escape alone. And the guy then says that she is smart enough to understand that this is the best solution. And the girl replies that yes, but when she wants to say something, who understands that in such a battle, she will undoubtedly only be a hindrance. But since Ariana is on the side of a person from the Yuan clan, she is sure that this girl will give instructions to be attacked. And this girl will definitely do it. and the main character understands that she probably cannot use this against her, but the potential of her strength is worth testing. His Highness at this time understands that Shiji will take on a person from the Yuan clan, and Rua avoids danger, but when he looks back at the monster, he thinks about how he can defeat this monster. The guy understands that the commander is helping people escape, but the evacuation is not successful. Yes, and it's difficult to swing a sword when there are so many people around. And the prince then thinks that first he needs to take the beast to an open space away from people. But the main character at this time tells Sven to wait because she has a plan. Then he screams a little in shock that Ruya needs to run away from there as soon as possible. However, the main character then confidently replies that she will not run away and asks Sven to listen to her. After which the young lady tells her plan, but His Highness asks in shock what she is saying, and is she in her right mind? After all, how can he allow her to do something dangerous? However, the young lady then puts her finger to the young man's lips and says that if she were in her right mind, she wouldn't become him here. And the young man then takes her hand and claims that the girl is always there. She exceeds his expectations and then says that okay, and he understands, and then offers to follow her plan again. And the main character then thanks Sven for accepting him. They both claim that he just wants to quickly play a major role in their plan. Galt is just heading down the corridor and realizes that during the entire evacuation, Ari never showed up well if she had already managed to escape. At this time, one of the women falls tripping over her dress, and the monster, seeing her, remembers the words of the blonde, that he needs to attack the lady with white hair. So the monster now begins to growl at the top of his lungs and prepares to attack the woman. Galt then tries to remove her and tells her to be careful. But the young lady after this only claims that the monster needs to attack not this woman, but her. After which, the monster immediately directs its gaze to the young lady, and Galt then screams for her to be careful and run. The young lady then realizes that, as expected, this monster reacted to the white hair, and the Yuan clan man can control magical creatures, but they cannot recognize people, and if Ariana orders the beast to attack her, she will tell him the color of her hair, and the young lady thought so, because she understands a little about her thoughts, because they are former friends. His Highness at this time says that Rua helped him out by taking the monster aside, after which he delivers one precise blow to the monster's neck, causing him to scream. And after that, the young lady also touches this monster and begins to use her ability, from which the monster only whines and then falls to the floor, and the main character, looking at her hand, understands that it worked, and transferring the symptom of intoxication also worked on the beast. So this time she transferred the hangover. His Highness at this time turns to Rua and says that everything worked out because she became bait and he killed this monster. And more precisely, he pretended that in the end, it was she who pacified this monster. After which, the guy turns to the young lady and says that everything is as planned. And the main character replies that this is all thanks to the fact that he trusted her. At this time, everyone in the hall begins to clap and claim that His Highness Sven tamed the beast, and as expected of His Highness, he did it, and how bravely the girl acted, becoming bait. Galt watches all this at this time and realizes that this girl looks like Miss Ristato. Ariana at this time only gets angry and realizes that she still couldn't do it, and the girl thinks how useless these monsters are. Then she realizes that she needs to use Plan B. The guy who is controlling the monster at this time is in shock looks and thinks why he doesn't move, and has the beast really suffered, after which he realizes that he needs to leave quickly. But at the same moment, someone puts a sword to his neck and claims that he doesn't think the guy will succeed. It turns out to be Sir Shiji, and he claims that on the orders of His Highness, he will not allow this guy to escape, after which he advises him to confess on whose instructions he acted. While everyone in the hall is clapping, one of the guys enters the hall and claims that the hair color is different. However, then he asks if it is Madame Rua during the attack by a magical creature that happened at Redmond's ball. There were no serious consequences. Only a few people received minor bruises, so the case was not made public. The Yuan clan man, who controlled the beast, was caught, and the fact that Redmond was one of the culprits in the attack of magical creatures. It was made public before the aristocracy in the hall, and was supported by documentary evidence. The Viscount was arrested on the spot. Moreover, if the fact of the existence of a behind-the-scenes leader is revealed, then the crime of the head of the clergy and his associates will also not be able to be hushed up forever. Now the young lady is sitting at the table and says that the carriage in which Redmond and the man from the Yuan clan were being transported was attacked by robbers, and the man was plunged into eternal sleep. And Redmond, although he managed to escape, lost his mind. At the moment, a man in prison is no different from a mentally disabled person who cannot even put together a few words. The young lady understands that her threats did not become the turning point, and her ability was only a threat, but this time he really believed that he would be plunged into eternal sleep and went crazy. Therefore, now the main character is thinking about the escaped enemy and understands that the head of the clergy probably hired them. The prince then replies that he believes so, but he is alarmed that everything happened too quickly, and maybe Miss Tobaraz had prepared mercenaries in advance as insurance in case she failed. The young lady then thinks that Ariana is still the same treacherous one, and Shiji claims that he should have accompanied this carriage and not left it as a knight, and that it was unwise of him. After which the guy bows and asks for forgiveness, but His Highness then replies that no, and they should have avoided participating in this matter, even if it meant allowing the knights to take all the laurels for themselves. But there is another person from the Yuan clan, and the likelihood that he will appear at some meeting is still not zero, and it was his decision to exclude Shiji from the mission. So the guy doesn't have to worry because he did everything right. Shiji then replies that it is fine, but said that His Highness does not have to say such things. And the prince at this time claims that losses from magical creatures should disappear for a while because they thwarted one of the enemy's plans. The young lady claims that this is logical, but thinks that as for Charlotte, she received the money through the confiscation of Redmond's property. As planned, they also found out that Redmond's wife and son did not participate in his plans, and they moved to the woman's family estate, so they did not have to live in poverty. And the young lady thinks that at least there is something good in this, and then smiles, but then asks what their next enemy is. And the young lady asks if they will deal with the next aristocrat, collaborating with the head of the clergy. The prince then replies that he would like to, but first his father gave Rua an invitation, and he wants him to bring the girl to an audience. The main character then realizes that this thing is His Majesty the King, and now she asks in shock if this is really so. Ariana at this time just gets angry in her room, and beating the pillow screams how much it sucks. The girl understands that the attack of the magical animals failed, and even though the mercenaries who attacked the carriage did a good job, but His Holiness reprimanded her and argued that no matter how willful she was, she also sat quietly for a while. So now the girl is wondering if he's really angry with her, but then she screams that she didn't do anything wrong, and it's all Rua's fault. So now she asks what kind of absurdity this is. The girl still did not expect that Rua would act so bravely and voluntarily become bait for the beast. But everyone applauded and rushed around with her like a decommissioned bag. So now the blonde is very angry and realizes that this girl is just a defective holy orphan, and she thinks how much she hates her. But then she lies down on the bed and thinks that she will let Galt pamper her. Well, the girl also understands that there is something in that. The way he talked to her after the ball, it was like he was in the clouds. And now the girl screams that she is so angry that it's like she's falling into an eternal sleep. At this time, the maid enters the girl's room and asks for forgiveness, but claims that she has messages from the head of the clergy. The blonde then jumps out of bed and asks what she is talking about, and she herself thinks whether this man has finally forgiven her. The maid then states that they are talking about the annual celebration that will take place in the coming days. And the young lady realizes that she remembers something like this. After all, it gathers candidates for sainthood, and perhaps she has another chance. So now the girl is asking, can the maid clarify something? Sven's older brother is sitting at his desk at this time. Well then, he looks at one of the papers and wonders if this is the report on the incident at the estate of Viscount Redmond. That Sven played a key role in this, so now his older brother just winces and says that again, this guy is for his own. At this time, someone enters the room and asks for forgiveness for interrupting Mr. Sarad's work. The guy then turns to Diana and asks what happened. And the woman then says, that's the point. However, when she sees the guy's face, she screams for him to stop wincing so much. After all, with such a face, he will scare away all his subjects, so let him smile a little. And then the woman asks, why doesn't he take an example from his little brother? However, the guy then asks if she really claims that he is more suitable to be the next ruler. Well, the lady with green hair then claims that no one says that, and tells him to stop being so gloomy right now. After all, she is his bride. Well, after that, the guy just turns away and falls silent. And Diana then tells him to better listen to something else, and claims that tomorrow a girl will appear who will be a candidate for sainthood. And she has completely figured out that incident together with his brother. Sarad then frowns and says that he is looking forward to meeting with such a famous person, and Diana at this time replies that however he should be very eager to meet her. Exactly, Lewis. The guy then says that he believes Mrs. Rua is an important person to him. The head priest at this time scatters papers in his office and screams that this Ariana is a capricious girl. She does as she pleases, and he asks if she's going to derail his carefully laid plans. But then one of the servants turns to His Holiness and asks Togo to calm down, because Ariana has already dealt with this problem by sending mercenaries. And the high priest then says that she hired mercenaries for money, and another priest then claims that the annual ceremony will soon take place. And from now on, the girl will obediently follow all his instructions. The man then replies that if this happens, then everything is fine, and for this, he must nominate this naughty girl. The man with red hair then tells His Holiness that everything is correct, and the man then thinks that however he could not imagine that His Highness Sven and Rua would pacify the magical beast, and it's very likely that the young man found out about his plan, and Rua most likely happened to be nearby. However, be that as it may, Redmond has become useless, and he will no longer use magical beasts. So now the priest thinks that no matter how much he would like otherwise, he will have to neglect some details of the plan in order to complete it faster. At this time, someone comes into the office and asks for forgiveness, and then asks if the head of the clergy is there. It turns out to be Galt. And now the priest turns to Mr. Commander and then asks what made him come to him. The guy then claims that in general he would like to ask him a few questions regarding one candidate for sainthood. But the man then interrupts the guy and asks if this is urgent, after which the young man replies that there is nothing urgent. But the priest then sends him away and asks for forgiveness, but claims that he has business and offers to discuss this another day. After which he says goodbye. After Galt sees the closed doors in front of him, he realizes that nothing can be done if he is busy. The guy then realizes that he wanted to know more about Ruya Restato, and he thinks whether the girl is really such a terrible person, as Ariana says. After all, at that moment, she acted with dignity and even wonderfully. Well, then the young man begins to shake his head and realizes that he cannot be trusted to think about such things. Well, when he passes near one of the windows, he looks into it and again thinks about Lady Restato. The main character at this time heads down the corridor and realizes that she cannot believe that the day of the audience has come. And the girl understands that His Majesty just wants to reward her for her help in the incident at Redmond's estate. And Sven said that everything will be exactly like that. He also gave her a dress for the reception again, And the young lady is now thinking, how could this not be a joy? But the girl also thinks that this feeling of being looked at from everywhere makes her a little nervous. The maid at this time asks if this is the same Rua Restato who fought with the magical beast. And she defeated such a terrible beast, so it's amazing. And the girls also say that this dress suits her very well. The men also talk among themselves, and one of them claims that Duchess Peridot said that this girl saved her, and his interlocutor claims that the feat of the candidate and His Highness Sven became the subject of discussion at many receptions. The young lady then thinks that these rumors are not so bad, but she wonders if the other candidates feel awkward due to the increased interest in her person. She will become the Rose Princess at this year's ceremony in honor of the goddess Rush. And the main character then understands that this is for sure, and soon everything will consist of a ceremony in honor of the goddess Rush. Rush's birthday, and the main character at the event should be the current saint. However, at the moment her place is empty. Therefore, the two best candidates for sainthood are chosen, one from the temple side and the other from the royal family. Two girls who cope well with their responsibilities to the people are called Princesses of the Rod of the Year. The young lady understands that this title was named so because of Rush's love for roses, and therefore in the temple garden there is a garden with them, which serves as a place for the candidates to relax. And the people are also looking forward to this sacred holiday because the temple is one of the governing bodies of the country. Yes, and in addition to the Rose Princesses, candidates for sainthood almost always play a background role. And as for the main character, she was something of a servant every year. While Ariana has been nominated by the temple for the role of Princess of Roses for 2 years in a row, and apparently this year it will be the same. Children of high status were nominated from the royal family, so this year the girl understands that she will again be behind the scenes. And it's unlikely that Sven will remember her name unless it concerns revenge. Well then, the girl enters the garden and realizes that Sven told her that the path to the audience place lies through this garden. However, at the same moment the maid who is in the window pours water from the bucket directly at the main character, but when you turn around, the maid is already running away. The young lady notices only part of her hair and wonders if it's a girl, after which she believes that it's not an accident, but wonders if it's Ariana's doing. However, the main character understands that it's not her. After all, because the girl wouldn't engage in such petty hooliganism, and moreover this thing belongs to the royal court. But then the main character realizes that it will take time to dry out, so she thinks about what to do. At this time, Sven's older brother notices her and says that she is probably a candidate for the sainthood of Rua Restato. But then the guy just looks at her angrily and asks what the girl is doing in such an ugly appearance in the royal palace. The young lady then realizes that His Highness Saradzaido Crown, he is the crown prince and also Sven's brother, and she heard that both brothers have outstanding abilities. But now the girl thinks what a cold look her older brother has, and he really values good manners and is also strict with himself and those around him. So it's not for nothing that he is called the Prince of Ice and Snow. And maybe he and Sven are similar in appearance, but otherwise they are very different. And now the prince asks what happened, and also claims that he is listening. Then he asks why she is standing there in this form, and let him immediately name the reason why she is dirtying the royal garden. The main character then bows and asks for forgiveness for being there in such an unsightly form, after which she says that this is because, but still thinks whether she can tell the truth that someone doused her. But then the girl understands that it is impossible, because one careless fact will become the reason for unfriendly assumptions, and her rash statements can pull Sven down too. Therefore, now the young lady says that she apologizes for dousing herself with water due to her carelessness, and claims that she will immediately change her dress. But the prince then says that this does not suit him, and the girl shirks responsibility. And the guy then asks why his brother is spending time with her, because he must find out this before the girl meets her father, after which he tells her to come over. But at the same moment someone screams Sarida's name, and it turns out to be his wife. The girl claims that she watched what was happening, and the way he approached the girl in wet and cold clothes was completely ill-mannered. The guy then turns to Diana and tries to make excuses, but the girl screams that there is no need to make excuses because the first thing he had to do was take care of her, because what if she caught a cold? And after all, he, as a future king, must learn to think about his actions. The main character watching all this understands that the terrible Prince Sarid has just arrived. He looked like a naughty puppy, and the girl wondered who this energetic girl was. The girl at this time apologizes for such treatment, and then claims that her name is Diana Peridot, and she is the bride of Prince Sarid. The young lady then realizes that she has heard of such a surname, and this is the ducal house, and this lady is the future queen. Therefore now, the main character asks for forgiveness for her terrible appearance, and claims that she is Rua from the house of Ristato. The lady with green hair then replies that she knows, and was just about to thank the girl, but the young lady then asks why to thank her. However, Diana then says that she needs to change her clothes first, and she thinks that there is no time to return to the temple, so she will take her to her room. Sarid then in shock tells Diana to wait because inviting a candidate for sainthood whom she barely knows is too much. However, the girl then replies that everything is in order, and she knows that Rua helped Sven in a recent incident and asks to notice that she is doing a good deed. So she asks the guy not to interfere if he himself is not able to help. Then Sarid just falls silent, and the main character then thinks that His Highness Sarid is under the heel of the bride, and it's amazing how the girl is not timid with him, and perhaps this means that they really have a good relationship. Diana at this time turns to the young lady and invites her to go. A short time later, the main character is already changing into one of the dresses, and the lady with green hair says that it suits her very well. The girl claims that she wore this dress for a long time, but Lady Rua is just right. The main character then tells Lady Diana that she still cannot accept him. However, the girl with green hair then asks if she really likes her old dress better, and the main character answers that that's not the case. She understands that the dress given by Sven is really beautiful, but this is the second time she ruins his gift, and now the girl is a little puzzled, wondering how this can happen. Diana at this time just smiles and says that that dress must have been a gift from Sven, and the main character then thinks how she guessed it and answers that yes. The green-haired lady then claims that she heard that they were dancing and that the two are quite close. Diana also claims that His Highness Sven is completely out of character for caring about a specific person, and after all, they help orphans together. The main character then remembers that this was their excuse at the ball and that this became the basis of their partnership. Therefore, now the young lady claims that Mrs. Diana knows about this, even though she was not at the ball, and the girl replies that of course she is a highly informed person in secular society, and there is nothing that she does not know about their aristocracy. In addition, the young lady claims that her mother and this woman with white hair, whom the girl saved then, were at that ball. The main character then asks in shock if it was her mother Alibi with green hair, at this time only grabs her hands and claims that her mother is very grateful to her because she is her savior. And now Diana claims that she also thanks her from the bottom of her heart. The young lady then claims that she was protected by the commander of the knights, Galt, and His Highness Sven pacified the beast, so she did nothing. The lady with green hair then tells the girl not to be modest because she heard about her brave deed and she would like to talk with her more, but she thinks that it's time for them to go to an audience because they are already expected. The main character then asks who is waiting, and Diana replies that she will see them soon. Therefore, now she invites Lady Rua to drink tea next time, and the main character agrees. A little time later, the girl already enters the hall, in which there are knights and servants. The emperor is also there, and he turns to Rua Ristato and claims that her contribution was significant, therefore for her help in eliminating the damage from the demonic beasts, as well as for her help in finding the culprits, he wants to express his gratitude to her. The main character then says that she is flattered by his words, and now the girl understands that, as expected, His Majesty is an influential man, and every word has its price. At this time, the man only tells the girl to accept any reward and think about it, and also say what she would like. The young lady then thinks about what she would like from His Majesty, and after some thought, he announces his desire. The girl claims that she would like to obtain rights to own the mansion of Baron Ristato. After this, the emperor is a little surprised, and the young lady understands that the noble mansion, the true owner of which plunged into eternal sleep due to the lack of heirs, as required by law, became the property of the state for the next 10 years. After this period, it belongs to demolition, and this year will be exactly 10 years old because of its dark past, as the girl heard no one lived in it. And that day, she was never able to visit the temple to find out what exactly happened. But she couldn't even visit the graves because she did not receive permission from the head priest. The emperor now says that this is how, and after all, the girl is the daughter of the baron who owned the estate, and the man then asks if she thinks that the price of this mansion is so high. The main character then replies that he is valuable to her personally, and this is about where she spent time with her family, so if there is a chance, she would like to get him back. The young lady understands that this has nothing to do with revenge, and is just a small dream that she gave up on long ago. The emperor at this time claims that he understands and sees no reason for refusal, after which the main character is surprised and thanks him. The man then says that he was sure that her request would be related to Sven's engagement. The young lady then asks if he is talking about an engagement to His Highness Sven, and wonders if His Majesty would joke. But he said this with such a serious face, and the man at this time claims that his son is very vigilant thanks to his upbringing, and he has been like this since childhood. But despite this, every time he mentions Lady Rua, he looks very casual, and perhaps the queen is worried about this. The main character then apologizes for her mistrust, but claims that it would sound too arrogant from the lips of a person of her status, and now she is nothing and nothing more than one of many candidates for sainthood. Therefore, she is not suitable for engagement with His Highness. However, the young lady thinks, what is it? She only said obvious things. But then, the girl doesn't understand why her chest hurts so much. The emperor at this time claims that if only she were not a candidate but a saint, she could become his ideal match. However, the young lady claims that for 10 years, this title has not belonged to anyone, and it was her pipe dream. The young lady understands that she is no longer interested in the position of saint, and she will try to prevent Ariana from taking it, but she herself does not deserve this position, and her main goal is now revenge. And the emperor then says that this is the end of their conversation, and the main characters do not agree. After which, she heads towards the exit and realizes that she has tensed up so much that she is tired. And the girl is even glad that one of her requests will be fulfilled. But now she needs to rest, because even though she came all the way to the royal palace, perhaps she should return to the library. However, at the same moment, someone pushes the young lady down the stairs, after which that girl immediately runs away, and the main character thinks that it can't be him. And is this really the girl who poured water on her? Well, then the young lady realizes that she will not be able to maintain her balance and will fall, after which he immediately begins to fall down the stairs and closes his eyes expecting the worst. Well, then Sven grabs her and greets her, after which he claims that he didn't think so, that she would fall from the sky, and it was good that the girl's hair attracted his attention. The young lady then thanks the prince for saving her, but realizes that he mentioned in the morning that he would be busy with formal affairs in the surrounding area, but apparently finally returned. The guy also asks if she hit anything. The girl replies that no, and she avoided it thanks to him, and therefore she is a little puzzled, and asks if he can let her go already. But His Highness then asks if she just stumbled, because if that's the case, he's worried that she might fall again. The girl then doesn't even know what to answer, and the prince wonders if he can also ask why she took off the dress that he gave her, and the main game does not answer that she accidentally stained it. But the prince then turns to Rua and claims that he is sensitive to lies from the people around him, so such an answer will not work with him. The main character then looks at the prince, and she thinks why such a dark aura surrounds him, and she doesn't want him to be too worried. But then the girl nevertheless apologizes and claims that in fact someone poured water on her and her dress got dirty. And just now someone pushed her, too. So maybe it was done by the same person, and I think so to her. His Highness then asks if the girl remembers what this man looked like, and the young lady apologizes but claims that she doesn't know for sure, after which the prince replies that he understands. And perhaps someone not related to Lady Torbiaz harbors a grudge, so that he is thinking of assigning Shiji to her as a guard, and the main character is then surprised and screams that it is not necessary to take such measures. After all, not so long ago, this was an almost everyday occurrence for her. After these words, Sven only looks sadly at the young lady and says that she is too used to pain. The guy claims that difficult moments cannot always be avoided, but she can talk to him about them. The young lady then asks Sven what he is talking about, but at this time someone approaches them, and when he sees the girl, he drops the apple and then asks, "Is this true, Mrs. Rua?" The main character then looks at the guy and asks if he is Louise. But at the same moment the young man jumps on her with hugs. He also cries out that he has been waiting for this meeting for so long. His Highness just looks at all this in shock, and Louis, with tears in his eyes, says that Mrs. Rua's hair color has changed. But this does not negate the fact that she has become even more beautiful, and he thanks the Lord God for the fact that they met for the second time in this world. The girl is then a little puzzled and says that she is also glad to meet him again, but asks if he could loosen his grip. His Highness then pulls the guy away and says that this is for sure, after which he asks if he can let the girl go already, after which he asks Rua who this ill-mannered, bespectacled apple guy is, because he looks like an employee. The main character then thinks why the prince called him that, and Louis then bows and cries out that he asks His Highness for forgiveness and unknowingly behaved very disrespectfully towards him. But the prince then asks if he thinks that this is impermissible and fraught with punishment for insulting a member of the royal family. After this, the young man only gets scared and asks for mercy. Well, the main character then turns to Sven and tells him not to threaten out of nowhere. The girl then claims that this is Louis, and he really was a hired hand on their estate, and he also took care of her during her childhood and was just like an older brother. Louis Liston came from a small country in the East, where he was the first son and heir of the best store in the country. However, he himself did not show the ability to trade. As a result, he ran away from his father, who forcefully forced him to continue this business, and began to look for work in the kingdom of Zedo. The guy was lucky to find his place on the Resto estate, and the young lady's mother is a very hard-working person, so there were always very few servants in their house, and Louis became a new person for the first time in a long time. My father immediately liked him because he was a conscientious worker, and he also made excellent baked goods, and the guy looked after her from time to time. Therefore, now looking at the young man, the girl understands that he has not changed at all, even though 10 years have passed. And this is such nostalgia. So the main character now claims that she was worried about what happened to him after the employer disappeared. And the young man replies that, to be honest, immediately after this unfortunate incident, his father contacted him when he arrived in the city on his own business, and he returned him to his homeland. However, it later turned out that his third younger sister had much more trading ability. Because of this, she was recognized as the heir, and he received complete freedom. The main character now understands that this is true, because Louis has as many as 5 younger sisters. The guy then claims that about 6 months ago he came to this country again and began to serve Lady Diana from the Peridot family. The prince then says that this is it, just like this guy works for his brother's fiancée. Louis replies that this is true. And the main character then says that be that as it may, she is glad that he is doing well. And the guy then screams that he should have said it, because after returning home, only he could helplessly worry about her. But now they have met again, and he needs to tell her something. After which the guy asks her to listen carefully to what he is going to tell her. The guy claims that the sudden immersion into eternal sleep of Mr. Mrs. and youngest son Restato, he always doubted whether this was some person's plan. The young lady then, in shock, asks if he is talking about a plan and claims that they are sick. And the guy claims that the cause of their death was called a previously unknown disease, but it is likely that it was a crime organized by someone. The young lady then thinks about this in shock, but then asks on what basis he makes such a claim. The guy is then about to answer, but at the same time a couple of the maids scream, "What is this?" And also, "Who scattered the apples in such a place? You can't even walk there." Louis then apologizes and claims that it was him, and then says that Mistress Diana asked him to make an apple pie. The main character then turns to the guy and says that she can help. However, he completely refuses and says that there is no need, after which he asks to be allowed to continue his story later. The young lady then tries to object, but the prince then says that it's better to leave now, and he's sure that the girl is confused, but it's best to take a break now to calm down and think about everything. Rua then understands that Louis would not say something like that, based only on empty assumptions, and he has some reason to suspect someone. So the girl wonders if her family were immersed in eternal sleep, not by a disease, but by some person. Therefore, now the main character is thinking who could possibly need this. The prince at this time looks at the girl and is silent. A little time later, the young lady is already lying in her bed, and having risen from it, she realizes that so much happened yesterday that she did not even have the strength to deal with the projectile. And looking at this dress, the girl understands that it needs to be restored to its previous appearance, and then given to Mrs. Diana. The main character also understands that preparations for the birthday celebration will begin tomorrow, and she wonders who will be chosen as this year's Rose Princess. And she is also worried about what Louis said and the matter with the mansion. So she has so many reasons to worry. And now her Naledi is wondering if someone really plunged her family into eternal sleep. Just then, someone knocks on the door, and the young lady then tells him to come in. Shiji comes into the room and wishes Mrs. Rua good morning. He also claims that today he is performing the duties of her guard and will be with her 24 hours a day on the orders of His Highness Sven. The main character then, in shock, thinks why is it him, but then remembers that she had already forgotten that someone wants to harm her. That's why Sven assigned Mr. Shiji to her, and he was already overly caring. The guy at this time still holds out the letter and says that it is for Lady Rui from the royal palace. The girl then takes the letter in her hands and wonders if she really had to leave the royal palace. After all, if so, this could be evidence certifying her right to own a mansion. However, when the girl looks at the letter, she screams that there must be some kind of mistake. After this, the girl just rushes to the secret place where she and the prince meet, and when she goes inside, she screams whether Sven is there because she needs to clarify something. The prince then only says that it's good that she came, and he was just admiring the newly blossoming buds of white roses, after which he tells her to look. But the main character claims that she will look at the flowers sometime later, because there is something more important to do. After which, she shows this sheet and asks what it even means that she was recognized as this year's Rose Princess. And was it really he who nominated her? The guy then replies that he would like to say that everything is exactly like that, but it wasn't him. And the guy thinks that this idea belonged to his brother's fiancée. The main character then wonders if this is Mrs. Diana, and the young man claims that moreover there were many people in the royal palace who supported this decision in connection with the fruitful work in the Redmond case, and the decision was almost unanimous, except for some individuals. The main character then thinks that probably one of these individuals was His Highness Sarid, but it is worth noting that it was Mrs. Diana who nominated her. The prince at this time asks if the girl wanted to become a rose princess, but the main character says that this is not the case, and that she is simply the worst candidate for such a prominent role. However, the prince then claims that he thinks Rua is perfect for her, and he wouldn't mind seeing her in a rose princess outfit. After this, the main character only becomes embarrassed, and the guy asks if she thinks that this will also be very useful for their revenge plan. The girl asks how this will help the plan, and the prince claims that thanks to this opportunity, she will publicly raise her status, and her words will begin to carry more weight, which will play an important role in clearing up the atrocities of the head of the clergy. The girl replies that this is indeed so, and in this case, she says that she will ideally play the role of the Rose Princess and earn the trust of the audience. Well, then the young lady asks, what about another princess? And the guy then claims that unfortunately, this year the person nominated from the side of the temple will be Lady Torbiaz. The girl is in the temple at this time and turns to Galt, telling him to take a look. After all, this is a special veil that only princesses wear, so the girl asks if she isn't beautiful. The guy then turns to Ariana and claims that he understands that the girl wanted to show her to him, but claims that a gang of criminals is rampaging in the city, and the Knightly Order received a request for help. But every year closer to the beginning of the ceremony, there are those who lose their composure. The girl then asks why he is doing this, and the young man thinks if she doesn't understand and says that forcing him to come to her at such a time is a little too much. After all, as he already said, he also has his own responsibilities. Well, after that, the girl just gets angry and asks if he can't entrust this to his subordinates. And he just had to praise her because she would become a princess of height 3 years in a row. Well, the guy says that doesn't mean that. However, the girl then interrupts him and asks what is more important to him than airy or duties. The guy then claims that it is not good to force him to choose one thing. Well, the girl then only gets upset and pretends that she is crying, after which she claims how insensitive Galt is, after which the young lady asks if he really hates her. Afterwards, the guy is only surprised and apologizes, after which he claims that he shouldn't have been so rude. And of course, he doesn't hate her. The young man hugs Ariana. After this, the girl just turns her nose and asks if simple words for an apology are not enough because he hurt Ari. At this time, the girl thinks how sad this is because they say that Rua will become the second Princess of Roses. It's so disgusting. Therefore, the girl understands that she needs to quickly find a way out of this situation and see it in person, how this defective saint will fall. The main character is with the prince at this time and asks if he and Ariana will be together. His Highness then states that he took countermeasures by assigning Shiji to her, and he thinks that the head of the clergy will not take any rash actions until the ceremony is over. However, he doesn't know what might come into this girl's head, and he shouldn't forget about the ill-wisher who extended the water on her by pushing her down the stairs. The guy claims that they will move on to the next stage of the plan immediately after the celebration ends, and he hopes that it will be without incident. The main character then replies that she understands, and then turns to Mr. Shiji and also says that she is returning to the beginning, thanks him for agreeing to protect her. The guy then says that there is no need for gratitude because he will do everything possible to protect her. And the prince then claims that she will become the official owner of the mansion immediately after the celebration is over. And the girl understands that Sven probably talked about this with His Majesty. And also, she is still worried about what Louis said. Well, now she understands that it is better to concentrate on the paramount thing that is on her role as the Princess of Roses. The guy at this time claims that he needs to return to the palace and asks if the girl is leaving there, to which she agrees. Well, when the young lady and the prince leave together, the same lady who pushed her down the stairs is watching her from behind a tree. The girl then claims that her master Sven is as beautiful as always. Well, she doesn't understand why he's seeing this girl off, because she's not his bride. The brunette then thinks that Rua Restato is a bad girl who is fooling Mr. Sven. Therefore, now biting her nails, the brunette understands that she will never recognize such a girl as the Princess of Roses and must drive her away. After which the young lady takes her pendant, and when she opens it, she looks at the photograph of the prince located inside. And he asks him to just wait a little. The main character at this time understands that the birthday celebration lasts 3 days. And during the first 2 days, those chosen by the princesses go around to the capital of the kingdom and distribute roses grown in the temple to the people. The subject who received this sacred rose does not give it to her 5 minutes before the end of the holiday. And on the evening of the last day, on the stage of the royal capital, the Princess of Roses will perform a melody on the piano. The piece is dedicated to the goddess Rush, and it is believed that she was a great lover of this instrument. After the completion of the melody, instead of applause, people throw sacred roses, and this is a special tradition of the holiday. So now the young lady understands that handing out roses is not a difficult task, but the problem is playing the piano. After all, since she got to the temple, there has been no opportunity to touch the instrument, so she is going to take a few lessons from the previous Princess Rose. After this, the young lady turns to Sir Shiji and says that you listened, and the guy at this time asks if Lady Rua has a request for him. And the girl then says that even if he is entrusted to be her guard, he is not obliged to accompany her even here. However, the guy then claims that the order of His Majesty Sven was to protect her and not leave her alone for a moment. So now the young lady thinks that the guy is still reliable. And Shiji at this time claims that however he should have told her one thing long ago after that. He asks to call him simply Shiji. The guy claims that other polite forms of address are inappropriate. The main character then tries to object. But the guy claims that Lady Rua is a valuable person for His Highness, so he should also treat her with respect and hope that she will address him accordingly. The young lady thinks what he means by a valuable person, and after all, she is just an accomplice, and then says that then in public, she will keep the previous treatment. Well, when they are alone, she will call him by name, after which the guy smiles. And he says, let the lady do as she pleases. The main character then says that Shiji is really ready to do anything for Sven. And the guy then claims that His Highness saved his life. Shiji understands that Sven cares about him and tells people that he is from a provincial town in a western country. But in fact, the guy is from the slums and was abandoned on the side of the road and also survived by swallowing dirt. Overcoming everything he tried to get out of such a life by adopting knowledge from merchants he accidentally met and gaining experience from hired soldiers. People who called people like him an eyesore accused him of stealing. And once the rich almost tortured him into eternal sleep. But at that very moment, it was the prince who saved him, and he claimed that he had been following his movements for several hours. Because the guy caught his attention while he was on a trip, and the young man is still too talented to fall into a crazy sleep there. Shiji then looked at His Highness in shock, and the prince then asked if the guy wanted to serve him, because he would not lose anything. After which the prince helped the guy get up, and now Shiji claims that since then his life belongs to His Highness, and he will carry out any order for the sake of the goal he has set. The main character then realizes that she and Shiji similar, because Sven also gave her a helping hand. It was then that he gave her a reason to live, so the girl can confidently follow her goal. And now, the young lady understands that for the sake of her own retribution, she too must play the role of the Rose Princess perfectly. After which the girl opens one of the doors, but when she comes in, she is a little surprised. He thinks that this lady was the Princess of Roses. This girl's name is Nurni Sandra, and she is the only daughter of Chancellor Sandra, and likewise she is a candidate for sainthood. However, the girl prefers loneliness, showing absolutely no interest in social life. But despite this, because of her high social status, no one criticizes her, as they did with her, and the girl performs her duties with indifference and restraint. Among the candidates, Nirna Sandra is the only one who has a higher origin than Ariana. And the main character now thinks that she doesn't know what kind of person she is, and she can't read minds, because probably it's just her imagination. But it seems so. The brunette at this time asks if this is Lady Rua Restato, and she claims to have received a request from the royal palace, asking her to explain the nuances of her role as the Rose Princess. The main character then answers and thanks her in advance for her help. But the girl at this time just bites her lip and asks why they chose someone like her. The young lady then apologizes and asks if the girl said something, and she just says that she heard it. Nirn then states that her job is to teach the girl how to play the piano, which is demonstrated on the last day. But before they start the lesson, then the girl asks if she can ask her escort to leave. After all, this is a private lesson intended only for the Rose Princess. The main character then exchanges glances with Shiji and nods, after which the guy says that he will do as they wish and will wait at the door. However, after this, he says that in case of emergency, he asks him to understand because he will break in without permission. After which the young man says that that's all and asks to be allowed to deviate. The main character then begins to hear the indignation of this girl, and the brunette at this time says that she is with Mr. Shiji and even with Mr. Sven, and the girl asks why this girl gets everything for nothing. Rua at this time turns to Lady Nirna and asks what happened. The young lady also realizes that she heard Sven's name. And the brunette, hearing how they address her, turns around and asks what it is. But at the same moment, the pendant on her neck breaks off and falls to the ground. The main character then leans towards him and picks him up. But looking at this pendant, he realizes that it is very familiar. And it even looks like the stone that the girl who bullied her had. The brunette at this time snatches this pendant from the girl's hands and screams so that she does not touch it. After which she squeezes this pendant in her hands and only gets angry, and the main character thinks what happened. The girl then asks for forgiveness for such a violent reaction, after which she offers to return to the main problem, and Rua then agrees. But she still understands that without a doubt, this pendant belonged to the one who doused her with water and pushed her down the stairs. However, the main character understands that she cannot condemn her with questions with only such insignificant evidence, and the girl thinks whether the reason for her actions was the fact that the princess and the roses chose her or something else. But the young lady then thinks that for now she will remain quiet and watch how the situation progresses. The girl at this time claims that there are a number of points that need to be understood in order to learn how to play a melody on the piano. After which, Nirni holds out, but then says that aristocrats study such melodies during their education. And also, last year Mrs. Ariana performed a melody called Thorns of a Rose. She chose a prayer composition. The main character then looks at the notes and realizes that all these melodies are of a high level of complexity. Ariana is skilled at dancing and playing the piano. The brunette at this time claims that even though the girl will not play as well as they do, she also comes from a noble family, so she can master at least one of these. The main character then realizes that this girl expresses herself caustically and looks down on her and doesn't even try to hide it. The girl then claims that she has problems, but strictly speaking, this does not mean that she cannot do it. Rua also claims that they wanted to talk about her late mother's talent in social circles. The brunette then asks if there were conversations in social circles, and she heard that her skills were very meager. And the main character almost becomes furious from this and realizes that now the girl is already mocking her mother. Nirna then asks what the girl is going to perform, and the main character says that if she chooses from these, she will perform the maiden's song. The young lady realizes that this is her mother's favorite song. And at this time, the brunette asks if she wants to perform such a complex melody, and whether it would be better to choose another one. After which, she points to one of them, and the main character thinks, isn't this a ballad for children? And if she performs it, she will undoubtedly become a laughing stock. And Nern, at this time, thinks that she still doesn't understand why they chose this idiot for the role of the Princess of Roses. The girl remembers how she sat next to her father and cried, and also asked why she was the Rose Princess of this year. Rue, not her, Restato. The man then turned to his sweet daughter, and he asked her not to cry. He also changed and claimed that her name was being raised this year. But many votes were given specifically for this girl. However, the brunette girl screamed after that, "Isn't even this girl's healing abilities without flaws? And besides, she is an orphan." But she also understood that despite this, Mr. Sven behaved at ease at the Viscount's reception. Even though she was his fiancée, the young lady's father then turned to her and insisted that the girl should not forget, because it is almost impossible to become a Rose Princess for 2 years in a row. But the girl then claimed that Mrs. Ariana and the Torbiaz family could do it. And the man then claims that this is all because she enjoys the favor of the head of the temple and has been nominated for several years in a row. But the girl then, still crying, insisted that this was unfair, and after all, he promised her that day she would plunge into the eternal sleep of her mother, that he would do anything for her. The man then apologized to his daughter and claimed that he would buy her whatever she needed. Therefore, let the girl only heal her wounded soul. He also said that it was late, so let her come in and rest in her room. After which the young lady goes to her room and realizes that she wants only one thing, and that is Mr. Sven. The girl goes into her room and begins to worship the prince. The girl claimed that he always looks only at that girl, and she also asked how long it would take to wait for her to look in her direction. The young ladies understood that she did not need the title of Princess of Roses, and she only hoped for her father's help and wanted His Highness to look at her again. I wanted to see him again from the moment they first met. The girl also claimed that she was his fiancée from the very day he looked at her and smiled. Igor, her thoughts bring her back to him. The girl also thought that no matter what dirty methods she had to use, she would become a Princess of Roses and would undoubtedly please Mr. Sven. The girl then said that she would eliminate Rua Restato at any cost. Therefore, now the brunette says that after Lady Rua, she will show at least a somewhat decent performance. And after all, she can calmly practice on this piano in this hall. And she will come again to look at the state of affairs later. So if she does not have an ounce of confidence, then she may refuse. The main character then realizes that she was constantly bullied in the temple, and she didn't have the courage for that. Well, even just looking at her like she's a non-entity, the girl is sure that the brunette will refuse. And even now she can't answer her properly. And the brunette now says that they will see each other then. Shiji at this time enters the room and addresses Mrs. Rua, and then says that there is strong hostility from that respected candidate, and perhaps she is a threat to her. So the guy asks whether to report this to His Highness Sven. Well, the young lady then replies that no, and there's no point in bothering Sven with something like that. The girl understands that the brunette insulted not only her, but also her mother. Therefore, now the young lady claims that she will pay her in the same coin, but in her own way, and the girl understands that she will never forgive her, and will return to her the same pain that she caused her, as well as humiliation. Now the main character turns to Shiji and says that she has only one request. At this time, the brunette understands that she is not interested in simply beautiful things, and since childhood, she has been attracted precisely by those that were in some respects evil. They could have been cursed, dolls, paintings painted with human red liquid, or the jewelry of executed kings. The girl only begged her father for things with an interesting backstory, and on the day she met Mr. Sven, called an unwanted child, she was struck by the gloomy coldness of his image, hidden behind an elegant appearance. The guy then asked if this was the daughter of Minister Nirna Sanda, and he also said that he was pleased to meet you. The girl understood that it was what she understood in that moment when Mr. Sven smiled at her. This is that he is also very romantic to her because it was a mental connection and someone who can understand Mr. Sven. Only she appeared, and only she is suitable for the role of his bride, and only she can be her. We can say that from that day they never met again, and the girl humbly waited for him to come and take her when the time came. However, now she is thinking why the guy chose someone outsider, because this defective saint only wants to cause him even more pain. But now the brunette thinks that it would be okay if she gave up the role of the Rose Princess. But 3 weeks have already passed since then, and there are only 3 days left before the celebration. And in the end, there is no question of this girl's proper performances. But suddenly, the young lady hears some kind of melody and wonders if it is called applause in broad daylight. But this melody is very complex with passages and a fast rhythm. Even she cannot perform it, and the girl thinks how perfect it is, but at the same moment she starts running and wonders if it's really that girl. After which, she immediately bursts into the room and screams why Lady Rua is playing this. The main character then greets Mrs. Nirna, although she says that she doesn't think it's very polite to suddenly come in and interrupt a person's play. After this, the brunette only becomes furious, but then still throws the notes from the stand. Then she screams why someone like her is able to perform such a melody. The main character then exchanges glances with Shiji, but then still turns to Lady Nirna and replies that, to be honest, she learned this melody at the age of 7, and it was the last melody, which her mother taught her shortly before she passed away. The young lady understands that she did not want to choose this particular composition, but Lady Diana recommended it. The lady with green hair asked if the girl wanted her instruction about playing the piano, and the main character asked for forgiveness for turning to her so suddenly, but claims that she came to return the dress and talk about it alone. The girl remembers how Shiji claimed that among the aristocrats, Lady Diana had especially outstanding abilities. The lady with green hair then replied that undoubtedly her game was approved, even by Mr. Sarrett himself. After which the girl turned to Louis and asked what he would say, to which the guy shouted that of course he agreed. But then he asked to be allowed to say that Lady Rua was also very good at playing the piano in her childhood, and she was a very talented child, known for the outstanding abilities inherited from her mother. Rua then said that Louis was exaggerating, and the guy only smiled warmly in response. The main character then said that be that as it may, her skills have fallen since then, and she needs to quickly return them, and also manage to perform as the Rose Princess. So she hoped that Lady Diana could give her some advice. After that, the girl with green hair only laughed and claimed that there was a person to whom she did not want to give in, and asked if this was true. And this girl is also the Princess of Roses. After which Diana grabbed the main character by the hands and cried out about the rivalry between the two girls. After which she screamed that if you take it on, you need to bring it to shine, and you need to start by choosing a lucky melody, as well as time is running out. So training should be as diligent as possible, from morning to evening. The main character then only screamed that she was counting on her help, and Diana claimed that her leadership would be strict, and asked whether the girl would carefully follow the instructions. The main character then smiled and claimed that she had already known all types of pain. Therefore, she will not give up so easily. So now Rua claims that she will not give up the title of the Rose Princess and will play her role to the last. After all, a person who can only hurt others is not suitable for the title of Saint or Rose Princess. The brunette then became very angry and clutched her pendant with the image of His Majesty. She turned around and ran to the doors. Shiji then turns to Lady Rua and says that she did an excellent job because her performance and her strong position are all as they should be. The main character then claims that she now hopes Lady Nirna will yield peacefully, and the brunette at this time is rushing along the corridor and everything, and thinks why this happened, and it's terrible, so she doesn't understand why it looked like she lost. The girl then went to the garden with roses and opened her pendant with the image of Mr. Sven. She asked her to console her. At this time, Ariana appeared behind this girl, and she cheerfully approached her and then asked what Nerni was doing there. The girl then turned around in shock and asked if it was Mrs. Ariana. And the blonde then answered that, yes, and it was her, and she also saw everything that she did there. The brunette was then in shock and didn't even know what to say, but Ariana said that everything was fine, and there was nothing wrong with that. After all, Nern is such a wonderful girl, and the one who is really bad is Rua standing in the way. The brunette then asked if she was bad, and Ariana told her that, and the one who makes mistakes is Rua, and Nerni does everything right. Nern then, as if in a trance, began to repeat that this was so, and that this was the girl on the wrong side. The blonde then replied that yes, and therefore it was necessary to destroy her. But Nerni then claimed that there were only 3 days left before the celebration, and it was almost impossible to deprive her of the title of Princess of Roses, and she was also being protected by Sir Shiji. The blonde then told the girl to think carefully, and after all, it is impossible to deprive her of the title, but the girl can still eliminate Rue. After all, without a doubt, there is a period of time when the guard leaves. Therefore, now the blonde only whispers in Nirna's ear that she will definitely be able to eliminate this eyesore. A short time later, the days of celebration arrived, and the main character, looking at the carts with roses, understands that she must distribute them all to the residents within 2 days. Therefore, she understands that it seems it will be more difficult than she expected. After which the girl thinks that Lady Ariana has probably already begun her duties, and the main character thinks that when they passed each other in the corridor, she behaved surprisingly normally. The girl said that the long-awaited beginning of the celebration had come, and they are both princesses of roses, so the young lady suggested that they try equally hard. The main character just looked at this girl in disbelief and understood that she was probably planning something. After all, despite the fact that they are both princesses of roses, they rarely meet each other because they replace each other in the city every other day. So the next time they will meet only on the last day when they play the piano, and the girl wonders if everything will really happen there. But she still doesn't understand what the blonde has prepared and whether she should worry. At this time, Shiji turns to Mrs. Rua and says that it is time for them to go. The main character then agrees, but understands that she is still nervous about going to the city, after which she asks if Shiji will accompany her now. The guy then claims that 2 more nights are assigned to the lady, but he will still follow the decree of His Highness Sven. At this time, the prince also appears and says that this is for sure, and the guy will follow his decree, and the main character is a little surprised and says that they have not seen each other for so long because of his business with delegates from other countries, after which he asks if he is busy today too, and the prince asks if she is talking about those ill-mannered envoys who suddenly visited them, saying that they were interested in their traditional public holidays. However, they are more likely interested in a wild lifestyle, so they are a complete inconvenience, and his brother wanted to shift the role of ambassador onto him, but he forced him to do it himself and ran away. The main character then thinks that His Highness Sarid must have been furious, and Sven at this time claims that he was on the verge of life from loneliness and could not meet her. The young lady now says he is exaggerating. Well, the guy at this time turns to Shiji and says that unlike him, he can be with the girl all the time. Shiji then doesn't even know what to answer and asks for forgiveness. But the young lady then tells the guy not to apologize, after which she turns to Sven and tells him not to tease him. The main character also thinks why everything is like this when she is next to Sven. That can breathe a sigh of relief. In recent days, the young lady's nerves had been on edge, all because she had not been able to meet Sven. But it seems like she was lonely. The guy at this time claims that he thinks it's time for him to return, and he's even glad that he was able to meet before leaving. After all, he wanted to see her in the Rose Princess outfit up close. The guy also claims that she is the most beautiful Rose Princess he has ever seen. So let her greet the people with her head held high. After which the prince kisses her hand and claims that he is looking forward to her performance. Then he says goodbye and says that they will see each other again. And the young lady, looking at how he leaves, understands that the guy always dispels her anxiety. When His Highness passes by Shiji, they just glance at each other, and Shiji nods, as a sign that he understood everything. A little time later, the main character, he is already distributing flowers, and people are happy about it. When the young lady holds out the flowers, she says that may blessings come with them. However, when the girl looks at her basket, she realizes that she hasn't even given away half of it yet, and it seems that it will take a little more time. And I also wonder how Ariana is doing there. Shiji at this time turns to Lady Rua and claims that some individuals may take advantage of the opportunity and attack her. But the knights are also not updated with experience in this kind of thing, so he will definitely do everything to protect her, but still asks not to let down his vigilance. But then, the main character sees a guy who just stole someone's wallet, after which she says that he is fast and most likely a pickpocket. Shiji says yes, and the young lady understands that this guy deftly avoids the gaze of knights and must be a professional. Shiji then wants to say that he will deal with him, but the young lady replies that there is no need for him to interfere with this petty criminal, and if she uses her position, she can handle the situation without making it worse. Therefore, the girl tells Shiji not to forget that he is her guard. After which the young lady moves on, and he invites that pickpocket to also take the rose. After that, the guy just turns around and answers that, no, after which he wants to say something else. Well, the main character says that this is in honor of the holiday, after which she touches his hand and tells the guy not to be shy, but at the same moment he begins to feel very dizzy, and he thinks what happened because everything is swimming before his eyes. After which the guy falls, and his bag also opens as he falls, and other people's wallets fall out of it. People then look at this in shock, and one of them asks if this is not his wallet, and the other lady then thinks that this is her ring. Another one claims that he must be there too, after which they cry out for the pickpocket to be held. And the main character, after leaving, snaps her fingers and realizes that usually the local security doesn't work so badly. But as Shiji said, it's all because of the holiday. At this time, someone else turns to the young lady and apologizes, but says that she was the one who helped catch this pickpocket. The girl says that it seems that the mistress's activities are still fruitful, and when the main character turns around, she asks in shock if this is really it, Charlotte. The girl then says that they have not seen Mrs. Rua for a long time, and the main character then claims that she is glad to see her in good health, and then asks if Mr. Allen, who is the same baker, is next to her. The guy then replies that yes, his wife helped him a lot in this matter, and the young lady asks if he is talking about his wife, after which Charlotte says that to tell the truth, after the lady decided that incident with Redmond, then Allen proposed to her, and quite recently they finally got married. The main character then asks if this is true, and then congratulates them. The girl at this time claims that the funds received were transferred to the victims of Redmond, or their families, so many were able to move forward a little because of this. And since then, the damage caused by magical beasts has completely disappeared. And now, Charlotte claims that all this is thanks to Mrs. Rue and His Highness Sven. The girl now claims that it was Mrs. Rua who healed not only their physical, but also mental wounds. Therefore, she is a true respected saint. After this, the main character just laughs and says that she is exaggerating. However, she thinks that it is still strange, because she cannot believe that it was she who healed their wounds, using a force that was only meant to cause pain. Now the girl also remembers that she is distributing flowers, and the worthy one for each of them tells them to take it too. after which he holds them out, and Charlotte then thanks the lady and says that she will still be performing on the last day, and she will throw this white rose when she comes forward to perform. The main character then asks how this is, and the girl claims that Mrs. Rua probably hasn't heard about it because it is a custom that arose naturally among the people, and she thinks that tomorrow the other rose princess will give them a rose. Well, at the end of the performance, people choose one of the two roses they have in their hands, which is given to them by a more respected princess, and then the flower is thrown into the air. Alan then says that it's like voting, and the young lady then thinks that's what it's like, and she didn't even know that a flower was a vote. The guy then claims that the evaluation criteria are such things as good or bad piano playing, or the number of good deeds performed as a candidate for the place of a saint, and that is decided by people. The girl then understands that the fact that the people cast the majority of votes for one candidate does not mean that it will affect anything, but be that as it may, it is a sign of popular support and can have a good effect on their plans in the future. Charlotte at this time screams that they will support Mrs. Rue with all their might, and Alan will also definitely throw a white rose. The guy then replies that yes, he will definitely do it. And the main character watching these two understands that no matter how she is glad to see them happy. The next day in the same place, a lady with tight hair gives out roses. She also tells them to leave her after playing the piano, and also that it be a yellow rose. Glenn is watching Ari at this time and realizes that he is glad that she is in a good mood. But when the girl saw the huge amount of growth, she began to complain that it was more than last year, but she was still kind to children and the elderly. Therefore, Ariana is still a kind girl. At this time, the guy also hears someone crying. It turns out to be a child, and Galt then approaches him and asks what it is and whether something wrong happened. After this, the boy's mother only asks if it is Lord Galt, after which he apologizes, but claims that it's a matter of the prose they were just given, and it seems there are thorns left on it. That's why the child injured his finger. At this time, Galt leans over to the boy and tells him to let him look after, which he claims that early it is not very deep, but then asks if he wants to be examined by the Princess of Roses. After all, she is a good candidate and will definitely heal the wound properly. However, the boy then claims that that princess is frightening him, so he shouldn't. His mother immediately tries to calm the boy down, and Galt looks at these two a little surprised. The woman then apologizes and claims that her son was attacked by a magical beast last year and severely injured. Then they turn to the temple for help, and the first one to respond at that moment was that Princess of Roses. However, when the woman asked if the respected candidate for sainthood could heal her child, then the girl just looked at them with disgust and then turned away and argued that Ari probably couldn't help with such a serious condition. The woman then said that it couldn't be, and the boy then grabbed the veil that tied the girls from their heads. The boy's mother then only desperately asked that the honorary candidate for sainthood save her son. However, the blonde then only furiously snatched the veil from the boy's hands and screamed for him to let go, and also did not dare to stain her veil. After which she also left, and the girl screamed that she wouldn't be able to help anyway. And now the woman claims that after that, another respected candidate came running and healed him. But now the boy screams that that princess is not kind, and she could not heal him, and also got angry. The woman then tries to calm her son down and tells him to stop screaming so much, after which she asks for forgiveness and tells Lord Galt not to attach importance to this conversation. The young man then agrees, and after that the mother and the boy leave, and the woman tells her son that they can patch up such a wound themselves at home, so they offer to go. And Galt then thinks what this means. And after all, the difference in the abilities of the candidates is small. So now he wonders if that family really meant Ariana. But this girl healed his severe wounds and abandoned people who asked for help from Ari. I couldn't. Well then, the guy looking at her thinks whether it was really she who saved him. The main character at this time thinks that yesterday was full of difficulties and worries, and it was the second day of the festival. So now the girl understands that today she will have almost no free time. At the same moment, someone turns to the second Princess of Roses and says that it seems she is not giving out roses now, and also asks if she has a break. The boy also screams for the Rose Princess to look at them, and the main character then just smiles and waves at them. The girl understands that even when she plays the role of the Rose Princess and gets closer to the people, she is still followed by security, and this greatly limits her freedom of movement. The young lady also realizes that she received some amount of government subsidy for playing the role of the Rose Princess, and she naively believed that there would be time to make some purchases, but now the girl still thinks that she can still find something useful in the shops. Then the main character's gaze catches something, after which the girl approaches the stall, and he takes one of the bottles and then says how beautiful it looks. The girl realizes that this red shade is similar to the color of Sven's eyes, and the seller at this time asks if this is the Princess of Roses and tells her not to be shy, after which the guy also asks if she liked this little thing, but only recently did he buy it from traders. And this thing is a perfume made from a rare flower that grows only in the southern island nation. And also, not only the bottle is amazing, but also the aroma itself. So now the guy asks to smell it, and when the young lady does, so she understands that she agrees because it smells great. And it feels not only fresh but also sweet, so it reminds her even more of Sven. The young man at this time claims that he was told that this fragrance is loved by noble men of that island, so this thing can be a good gift. The young lady then thinks if she can give it to Sven, but up to this point, she had only received gifts, and the guy gave her dresses and accessories. Shiji at this time turns to the young lady and asks if she is accidentally thinking about His Highness Sven, and the main character is only frightened by such a sudden question, after which she becomes embarrassed and replies that if she had not answered, she would not have bothered a member of the royal family over such a thing. Shiji then claims that His Highness is reluctant to use perfume, but he has long been interested in the culture of the Southern Islands and also hopes to someday establish diplomatic relations with them. The main character then asks if this is true, and looking at the bottle in her hands, says that then he should like it too. And Shiji then claims that for starters, he can notice that His Highness will be happy with any gift from her. The young lady then asks if it's true. Shiji once again says that he will be glad, after which the main character thinks a little and then says that then she will take it. The girl understands that this is ordinary gratitude, and there is nothing strange in this. When the young lady is already leaving the shop with a wrapped gift, she sees that something is happening nearby, and she asks what is there. And Shiji then says that the lady should wait because he will go and check first, after which the guy approaches the crowd and asks for forgiveness, but then asks what the fuss is about. One of the people then responds that there is a drinking competition with bets going on in front of that bar, and this is also the custom of this festival, after which he claims that he is betting that this year, as always, Malta from the butcher's shop will win. But he also says that strange young lady in the hood is frighteningly powerful. The main character then wonders whether similar events are actually being held in the city. Well then, looking at one of the participants, he understands that this avid drunkard is Mrs. Diana, and if you look closely, that man behind is Louis. After which the main character approaches him and asks what they are doing in such a place. But the guy then just smiles and asks if he was still able to see Mrs. Rua. And after all, the Rose Princess outfit suits her so well, so her image will definitely go down in history as the best. However, the main character then turns to the guy and tells him not to attach any importance to this and to explain himself better. After which the young man claims that, frankly speaking, this is what the younger prince, His Highness Sarid, once did. I plan to take Mrs. Diana with me to secretly watch the festivities. And at first, Mrs. Diana enjoyed the time spent. But then, His Highness Sarid began receiving guests and Lady Diana offered him her help. However, His Highness Sarid only told her to go and enjoy the holiday alone. Lewis also says that Mrs. Diana got angry, and since then, she has been behaving in a manner inappropriate for an aristocrat, and the main character understands that His Highness Sarid does not understand a woman's heart at all, but she still understands that everything turned out this way because Sven imposed his eccentricity on him. Therefore, now the girl asks if he is the only one who accompanies her, and the guy answers that, of course, and the elite guards of the Duke family are waiting in different places. Lewis also says that he couldn't even cope with Mr. Lewitt, and Mrs. Rua should know this better than anyone. The girl then realizes that this is the name of her late brother, whom she has not heard for a long time. But the young man was still very little at that time. Lewis, seeing the face of the main character, says that after the end of the celebration, he would like to agree on a place for their meeting and sort out one issue. After all, this concerns the death of her family, or the girl may think that he plans to mislead her with this cruel joke. But the main character then replies that his fears are not necessary. After all, after the celebration, she intends to make a statement, so let the guy explain everything to her properly. Lewis then turns to Ms. Rua and says that she has only become stronger over the years. After this, the girl only clenches her fists. She understands that if revealing the truth will only bring her pain, then she will accept it and move on. A little time later, the girl is already approaching the stage with the piano, and he understands that this is the beginning of the last day of celebration. People are already gathering around this stage, and one of the girls says that finally the final part of the celebration has come. The guys also talk to each other, and one of them says that his friend should not forget to throw the rose, and the other guy then replies that of course he will not forget, because this is the main part of the celebration. After this, the priest comes on stage and asks everyone for silence. One of the girls in the crowd then says that this is the head of the clergy speaking, and the guy claims that it looks elegant. The man then claims that the damage caused by magical monsters in recent years has caused great damage to the population, and thanks to the dedicated efforts of the temple, the death toll has been reduced. But he is sure that people felt terrible, but that is why the temple and the holy candidates exist with it. Therefore, they can safely spend the last day of the holiday this year, after which the man with a smile on his face cries out that they should be grateful for the existence of the temple, and they will be faithful to the goddess. Rush people then cry out that Mr. High Priest is right, and he always thinks about the people. The main character then understands that the High Priest, as always, seems to be a good person, and is plotting the souls of people, and also, of course, does not forget to incite people's faith in the goddess. But they don't even suspect that it is this guy behind the scenes who is directing all the attacks of magical beasts, and they will definitely take off this mask from him. At this time, someone turns to the Rose Princess and claims that there is a piano playing, right after which he tells her to come to her so that they can complete her costume, and the main character agrees. After which, she turns to Shiji and says that she has gone. The guy then agrees and claims that he will wait for her near the stage. But when the main character enters the room where her costume needs to be adjusted, she is a little surprised. After all, he sees Ariana there. The girl also understands that until today, there have been no more attacks. However, the girl thinks that she should not relax. Ariana at this time turns to Rua and asks if it is she, after which she also wonders what happened because she has such a frightened face. The girl also asks with a smile on her face if she is nervous before the performance. Ariana also claims that Rua will perform after her, so comparison cannot be avoided. But then the girl also says, with a smile on her face, that she is different from Rua in that way, that she has a home when she can return, and she can be called a worthy aristocrat who has received an education. The main character then realizes that this is her completely natural contempt for her, and the blonde at this time says that everything is in order, because if Rua performs well, she will definitely receive at least some roses. The main character then thinks what it is, and after all this whole situation is a country, and the blonde at this time only heads to the stage and says that therefore Rua too should not lose heart and play. But the young lady then turns to Ariana and asks if she can listen to just one thing, after which the blonde turns around and asks what she is talking about. And the main character then claims that when she first came to the temple, the girl spoke to her so kindly and then asked if she remembered. Rua remembers how other girls said that she was from the family of the Marquise Restato, and after all the mother of one girl told her that only Rua remained alive. And the other girl also claimed that it would turn out that her abilities were a defect because the high priest said so. The lady with purple hair then said that she didn't even want to go to the temple with such a girl at the same time. And the main character then realized that she no longer had any home. But at the same moment someone came up to her and addressed her. It was Ariana, and she asked if the girl's name was Rua. And after that, the main character only answered a little scared and stuttering that yes. And the blonde then said that the girl made a good impression, and then claimed that she wanted to become friends with her Malenko, also extended her hand, and claimed that she was from the family of Count Torbiaz, and her name is Ariana Torbiaz. The girl also said that she was glad to meet Rua. And the main character now understands that at that moment, the girl's smile calmed her down. But now, Rua asks if the girl really expected to use her even then. And the blonde then says that she said so about a good impression. And then she meant that the girl gives the impression of a person who is easy to use. Rua is now thinking about this in shock. And the blonde at this time says that she also talked about this. And she said that the girl was a good toy and also entertainment. Therefore, now the young lady asks if the girl thinks that someone wants to become equal friends with the defective holy orphan, and begins to laugh at the top of her lungs, asking if this is not funny, and Rua is still such a slow-witted person. The main character then replies that it's good, and she understood her, because the girl has been like this since childhood. Rua understands that with such a spoiled mood, she could easily not restrain herself and grab Ariana's hand. But what she wants most now is to shed light on her sins and the true nature of the high priest. The girl also understands that she wants a perfect place and cannot be led by emotions, and also needs to continue to hide her strength and wait for the right moment. At this time, the priest finishes his speech and says that now the people should enjoy the performance of the first Rose Princess. And the blonde then understands that this is her exit, and then says that they need to hurry. And when the girl leaves, the main character tells her that one day the day will come when she will be rewarded for all her sins. After which, she only says louder that it will be her doing. And the blonde leaving just smiles and wishes her good luck in this. But then he thinks that this will only work if Rua lives to see this moment. At this time, the lady with black hair is around the corner and is just laughing now. He also claims that when Lady Ariana's performance ends, it will be Rua's turn, and then there will be a great opportunity to attack the girl. Then remembers how the blonde said that they should eliminate this eyesore. And now the brunette only agrees, and also claims that there is no way to interfere there, because she must erase from her life the people who take Mr. Sven away from her, and for this purpose, on the eve of the celebration, she secretly equipped the stage with a simple system. After all, if you pull the rope, the stage will collapse, and the performer must fall under it. It will only be an accident that happened during Lady Rua's performance. And now Nerni just continues to smile, and says that she is eager to hear the last play of this Rua Restato, and will arrange a requiem for her. Ariana is performing her piano performance at this time, and everyone then admires it, and also says what an elegant performance it is. Some of the people ask if this is a dear candidate for the position of the saint. There was no Princess of Roses last year, as well as the year before, and after all, she is probably closest to the title of saint. The blonde, at this time, understands that she really loves it when the eyes of so many people are directed at her, and all this applause is intended for her. Then the girl finishes her piano playing and bows, and the girl then thinks that soon she will receive the place of a saint. After Ariana's performance, Rua also comes on stage. The girl understands that, of course, Ariana's performance was imbued with confidence, and she is next. The young lady also wonders if Sven is also somewhere there and will hear her performance too. The main character is trying very hard to play this melody, but she thinks, what is she thinking about? Because the guy is too busy right now to waste time on something like that. The brunette at this time only screams that now the time has come, and let Rua Ristato finally plunge into eternal sleep. However, when the girl is about to pull the rope, Shiji suddenly snatches it, and the girl then thinks in shock how he knew about this. However, then someone else turns to Lady Sandra and says that she has gone too far. It turns out to be His Highness, and he then asks, is the girl really one of those people who makes a fuss during a great performance? The brunette, then in shock, does not understand what she should do now, and screams, is it really Mr. Sven? The guy then only claims that he heard from Shiji that the lady tried to harm Ruya, and first she doused her with water, and after that she pushed her down the stairs, and in the royal palace, this cannot go unnoticed. And although apparently Rua wanted to sort this out without his participation, but Shiji now claims that he owes his lady an apology, but he was only following His Highness's orders to report everything. The brunette gets very scared after this and screams that it's all just a misunderstanding, and the prince at this time claims that they also found out about what the girl was now going to do, and Shiji found the equipment and also dealt with it, after which His Highness asks if the girl understands, even if she pulled the rope, the stage would not collapse. The girl then screams in shock that it was all a mistake, and she doesn't remember anything being done with the decorations because she was just wondering what the rope was doing there. Nirna also cries out, asking His Highness to believe her because she is his bride. But the guy then only says that he doesn't remember her being his bride. After which, he turns to Shiji and asks if he got engaged to this girl. The guy then asks to be allowed to say, with all the courage, that this statement is wrong. The young lady then asks in shock what he is talking about, and only says that it is wrong because Mr. Sven loves her. And the girl then desperately screams, asking, having broken their first meeting, she was not the reason for his completely sincere smile. Sven then just smiles and says that it's difficult for Minister Sandra to have such a stupid daughter and to believe that his own relatives are pulling him down at such a difficult time. The girl then just asks what he means by saying that it's difficult with her, and the guy then claims that the opinion has been expressed more than once in the royal court that the time has come for the minister to pass on the post to the next person. The girl then only screams in surprise whether they are talking about her father's resignation, and His Highness at this time claims that in the past he was indeed more than worthy of his post, but his current actions prove that this is a thing of the past, and it is obvious that his priority has become not the well-being of the people, but his own benefit, and moreover, a successor has already been found, and his candidacy was approved by the decree of his brother. But Minister Sander did not want to lose power. Their king, who is Sven's father, entrusted this matter to his brother. But the behavior of the minister's daughter, which is about to be made public, will put everything in its place. The girl then gets scared in shock and wonders if everything is really that bad. And the prince at this time claims that it would be nice to make his brother his debtor. The brunette, then with tears in her eyes, asks Mr. Sven to have mercy on her, after which she opens her pendant and asks him to look at it. And he also cries out that as he sees it, she loves him faithfully, and after all they are connected with fate, and also she did all this for his sake. However, the guy after that only coldly asks if she really did it for him, after which Pailish claims that he does not like intrusive people, and the young lady asks what Mr. Sven is talking about. Well, she also understands that she is very scared because the guy looks at her as if she is just an obstacle in his way. His Highness at this time claims that if the girl were not the daughter of Minister Sandra, then you would not represent any value to him. But even this value she would soon lose. And the guy claims that he got away with insulting Rua, but now she also tried to hurt the girl, so now he's angry enough. The girl then only falls to her knees and says that she asks for forgiveness, and therefore begs him to forgive her. But the prince then replies that he is afraid that for attempting to harm the princess, punishment will follow immediately, and the girl will not see him again, after which the prince snaps your fingers, and at the same moment, several knights take the young lady. The girl then screams for them to let her go, after which she turns to Mr. Sven several more times. However, the guy then only turns to Lady Nirna Sandra and says goodbye to her. After this, the girl only desperately looks at the prince, and at the same moment her hand with the pendant unclenches. The girl realizes that she knew that she was fascinated. It was that gloomy coldness that was always hidden behind the guy's beauty. But he turned out to be a much more terrible person than she thought. And after all, the girl was mistaken from the very beginning. So now she only screams in horror. The prince at this time turns to Shiji and says that this was also a worry for him. But the guy then replies that no, and it was an order from His Highness. But it was very easy since Mrs. Sandra left a lot of evidence, and if Lady Torbiaz had been in her place, this would not have happened. After all this, girl acts cleverly, and she is as difficult an opponent as their head of the clergy. His Highness then says that he will no longer allow them to do whatever they want, and Shiji bows and says that he will do as His Highness wishes. But then he asks, what about the punishment of Lady Sandra? Because even though she has fallen so low, she is still a candidate for the place of the saint who played the role of the Rose Princess. Therefore, the guy asks whether it would be fair to send her to a local small church, since there is no place for her as a saint anymore, and problematic candidates are usually sent there. And the prince then says that it is already possible to openly talk about resignation. But the minister could have retained his position after leaving office if he had obediently retreated after losing his wealth and power. There will be nothing left for the parent and child, except to hide your pride and move deeper into the countryside. But then the prince hears applause. Then he says that it seems Ms. Rua has finished her speech. Well, then the guy also wilts a little and says that he didn't listen at all, and maybe next time he'll ask Rue to play only for him. Shiji at this time asks His Highness, what about duets with the violin? Because since he plays the strings excellently, he thinks that this is a wonderful idea. After this, the guy just smiles and then says that it's decided, but before that state that he must pay tribute to Rue. At this time, people say that the White Rose Princess's performance was absolutely wonderful. One of the girls then replies that it seems to her that this is the best thing she has heard in recent years, and the melody is very complex. One of the guys then says that he doesn't know how a professional would rate this performance, but this melody even touched him because it's beautiful, but there's also something sad in it. The girl then takes the white rose and says that she thinks that she can vote for this lady princess once, and the guy then says that he too, and if he does, he will throw the white rose. Well, the other guy then says that he also wants to throw away the yellow rose, because this girl's performance was daring and bright, so they don't even know who to choose. At this time, Charlotte only screams that Madame Rua performed wonderfully, and that only a white rose can be thrown there, after which she also screams that Mrs. Rua is the best. Alan then turns to Charlotte and says that she would like to tone it down, and the main character is still on stage at this time. And Ariana, looking at her, understands that all her joy evaporated after she heard enthusiastic exclamations addressed to Rui, and it seems Nirni made a mistake, but she thought that this girl was useless, and probably later she will mention her name as an instigator. Well, the young ladies still think that nothing bad will happen, because no one will attach any importance to the ravings of a gloomy madwoman. And the blonde now thinks that if this girl is a pawn, she should at least benefit the queen. At this time, the priest also comes on stage and says that this celebration ends, and to praise the Rose Princesses for decorating this holiday with their performances. He asks them to throw their roses into the air, after which people begin to throw roses. And if you look at all of them, you can understand that the number is approximately the same, but there are still more white roses. Some of the people then say that the performances of the Rose Princesses were wonderful, and some of them say that they are already looking forward to next year. Galt then looks at this whole crowd and wonders if the celebration is already over. The guy then sees a yellow rose lying on the floor and thinks that he can breathe out. Although there were minor troubles, everything went without serious incidents, after which the young man picks up this rose, and when he smells it, he realizes that Ari's performance was also wonderful, but he was hooked by Lady Ristado's melody, and yet he cannot see in her the ugly candidate who mocked Ari. And also, apparently there are citizens who ardently support her, and he sees that there are white roses. Still more than that, however, the guy then thinks that it was Ari who healed him, but now he just shakes his head and thinks that everything is wrong, and he did not doubt his bride. Therefore, now the young man understands that he should ask Ari herself, and he will tell her about his suspicions, and also praise her performance. A little time later, the guy already enters the room where the lady with blonde hair is, after which he turns to Ari and says that he is. But at the same moment, the guy sees the girl pouring a glass of water on the maid and is very surprised. The blonde at this time just screams that she said that she was thirsty and asks whether such disgusting water can be poured into one's mouth. After which, she also screams for the woman to bring fruit, and at the same moment she agrees and runs away apologizing. But the blonde then doesn't calm down and turns to another maid and asks, didn't she say that she was tired and they couldn't even get her ready for a chair? After which that maid brings it up and says that this very minute, Ariana then sits on this chair and gets very angry. She understands that this performance is a complete disappointment, and although the count has not yet been completed, even without this, it is clear that there were more white roses. Therefore, the girl thinks in what place Rua's meager play was better, and after all, they are all just blind fools. Therefore, Ariana thinks that it would be more likely that His Holiness would carry out his plan, and she would finally become a saint. Galt then approaches the blonde and addresses her, but the girl then only turns to him in tears, and then screams for him to console the unfortunate Ari. The girl then rushes into his arms and claims that she is so annoyed that she gave in to Ruya, and after all, it was all Rua who mocked her, and the girl definitely used some kind of dirty trick. The guy is then a little surprised, but says that this is one of the reasons why he came, and that is what he wanted to know about. But the blonde then turns to Galt and screams that he certainly thinks Ari's performance was better. The guy is then even more surprised and says that neither is he. However, the girl then, with tears in her eyes, says how cruel it is, because he is also not on her side. The young man then, in shock, doesn't even understand what to do, but he understands that if everything goes like this, he won't be able to question Ari. And now he understands that it seems he himself will have to find out what is being hidden from him. And at this time the girl begins to beat Galt, after which she screams what a fool he is, and the guy then claims that he is to blame and asks Ari to stop crying.